What do they want to do?
They want to,
Progress.
Is that it? Yep. Oh, with those meetings. Good evening and welcome to the Monday, April 29th meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission. Start with a roll call. Chair Lisa Hanson, present. Vice Chair Jacob Miller.
Present.
Alder Jim Hutchinson.
Present.
Commissioner Darius Daniels.
Present.
Commissioner Ken Ravinsky.
Present.
And Commissioner Michael Pradik.
Present.
Moving on to the approval of the agenda. Approval of the agenda for the Monday, April 29th meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Pradik, second by Commissioner Ravinsky. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to the approval of minutes. Approval of the minutes from the April 8th, 2024 meeting.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Pradik, second by Commissioner Ravinsky. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And then moving on to regular business, starting with item number 1. Consideration with possible action on the On Broadway, Inc. Business Improvement District 2022 Annual Audit.
I can help with that. Each year, the bids are required, the business improvement districts are required to bring to the Plan Commission meeting their annual audits and are required to share any adverse audit report findings from their previous year. And On Broadway is here for that reporting.
All right.
Good, I'm just gonna, first off,
Motion to open the floor. Second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Ravinsky, second by Alder Hutchinson. Oh, by Commissioner Pradik. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
all right, so we, I know the other bids also gave sort of their annual report as well, so I'm just gonna spend a couple minutes talking about that, and then I'm gonna have our treasurer with On Broadway talk about adverse findings. Oh, and for the record, Brian Johnson, 516 Hubbard. I'm the Executive Director of On Broadway. As many of you know, we are a designated Main Street program. We are the Business Improvement District that covers the near west side of Green Bay. And so in front of you is our 2023 annual report that was distributed at our annual meeting held in February. And this just talks about some of our accomplishments during the year 2023. We follow the Main Street's four-point approach, which is highlighted here. And in fact, downtown Green Bay and Military Avenue, Old Main, probably follow something almost identical. The pillars might be something titled a little bit differently because they're part of a different national organization. But we organize our annual report by these pillars because we want folks to kind of see the different ways that we're having an impact and the different things that we work on. Of course, events are the things we're most well known for, but there's a lot of other activity that goes on in our organization, and we think it's important to tell that story. So under the organization side, you'll note that we had 547 volunteers last year that work on a wide variety of things in our district that equated over to nearly 4,500 hours of volunteer time. They work on a lot of different activities, including trash cleanups, maybe preparing walls for murals, painting benches and trash cans, and of course working at the mini events that help bring economic vitality to our district. And then there is a little bit of breakdown there for sources of support, uses of support, for our financials, but you can see that 85.2% of our revenue is directly invested back into programs that help accelerate our district. On the design side is where we work on things like historic preservation, public art initiatives, streetscape enhancements. Really excited that we introduced another 20 new murals to the district. That makes over 50 new murals in the last 3 years. We brought in the pop-up, or the pop-up dog park, as we like to call it. That was really taking an underutilized vacant lot and trying to activate it for something a little bit different, especially with the high concentration of residential density that's coming into the district, and most of which is proposed as pet-friendly. So we want to create those spaces for pet-friendly facilities. A couple of sculptures. We maintain all of our tree boxes and the planting beds. We do the lighting, the district lighting that goes around the trees. We collected over 200 bags of trash, which I was just informed. We are in April, and we've already exceeded that amount for this year already. So, and a lot of that has to do with just the demand never goes away, right? It's just how many volunteers can you get out there doing it. So super excited about that. One of the big accomplishments that was supported through a grant was We partnered with Downtown Green Bay on retaining an urban design firm. ISG won that contract to really help us think holistically about downtown from an urban design perspective. So we're really excited about creating streetscape design standards. It's kind of what we're focused on right now. But over the next 3 years, we'll be taking a look at a lot of the different elements within our community from an urban design perspective, creating more consistency and redirecting investment in a more efficient manner. On the economic vitality side, as you may recall, last year we had informed you that we were the recipient of $1 million Diverse Business Solutions Grant, and so we are actively deploying those resources right now, supporting many of our minority-owned businesses, but also taking a look at equitable housing solutions and creating more opportunities for vendors at our events, more programming, more integration, as in terms of our volunteer programming. So really doing a lot of outreach there to work with different folks in our community that might not historically have always had access to the types of activities that we do. On the economic vitality side, we did introduce 23 new businesses into the district. As you know, the shipyard broke ground. We continue to do work in partnership with the city to raise $4 million. The city's matching it with $3 million to construct a stage and a pavilion at Light Park. The Fort at the Rail Yard resumed construction of their apartments, which is, if you haven't been down there lately, it is big, right? And I tell a lot of folks, like, if you were to put that on a smaller stamp, a lot of time, postage stamp type of lot, like you see in bigger cities, this is over a 20-story tall building. So it's really just because it can spread out wider. I don't want that to diminish from the fact of just really how big it is and how many residential units that's going to bring. Of course, the thing we get asked about a lot is the Green Bay Public Market. If you haven't been down there lately, you'll see that it is undergoing selective demolition right now. And that is going to be 45,000 square feet. We'll have space for 26 vendors, probably end up somewhere around 20. We'll have a sort of an event space, co-working space, some other activation is going on with that. We are currently 60% of the way to our campaign goal, and so in order for us to meet the draft deadline to try to have at least the facility partially open before the draft, we knew we had to break ground when we did, but we continue to work with tenant recruitment, which will probably be our biggest challenge, leading into the draft. The shipyard is in there, which is talked about. Promotion. Again, promotion tends to be the thing we're most well known for. We hosted 58 events last year that drew just under 500,000 event attendees. That is not a guess. So we use Placer, which is geofencing software that allows us to actually pull data from people's phones and gives us really good data of like where people are coming from, where they go after the event. And then we can, of course, use all this data to calculate economic impact and make estimations on direct spend in the area. And with that, we saw the expansion of our Chris Kindle Market. We went from 5 event days to 12, and that was incredibly popular. It attracted, I believe it was right around 40,000 attendees to that event. And that's a really important time for the other sort of retailers in that corridor, Christmas holidays, right? So you want to bring that foot traffic down. Did a couple of other things. Fall Fest expanded its programming into Light Park, and we removed that off Broadway just to get a little bit more breathing room. And something that was new in '23, as many of you may know, we organize and host the 4th of July fireworks event, and we added a Latin music stage this year, and that was part of the DBA grant, doing some work there. Our most popular stage by far at that event, so which I think just shows sort of that pent-up demand, to reach other members of our community. And of course, just there's a whole bunch of other data in here, but that kind of hits the highlights. So happy to take any questions you have on the annual report. If there are none on that, then I'm going to turn it over to our treasurer to talk about the audit, because treasurers and audits go hand in hand. So.
Do you have any questions?
Okay, easy peasy, love it.
No, thank you so much.
Thank you, commissioners.
Hi, my name is Drew Carney. The address 3168 Enchanted Court. I'm the treasurer for the On-Broadway District. Is there anything else I need to add to that?
No,
Okay.
you're good.
I've never done a public meeting before, so. So about me, I was an officer in the Army, on the 415th Civil Affairs Battalion for 6 years, 16 years in law enforcement in Michigan. I got my MBA in forensic accounting. I'm a certified fraud examiner and a certified financial crimes investigator. I work for Whitley, and I have since 2018 as part of their fraud and forensics team, so I spend my days just investigating corporate fraud. I joined the On Broadway board in May of 2021, and I became their treasurer in January of 2022. Since I've joined, On Broadway has seen significant growth in the post-COVID era. Events, staff, expenses, revenues, grants, donations, everything has grown exponentially from where things were in 2020. With that, the staff has changed as well. And with that, some of that also, the policies and procedures didn't change as quickly as everything was growing. So as it relates to our 2022 audit, I want to start with, first and foremost, that we received an unqualified opinion on our audit, which means it was a clean audit. Nothing we had to do to change to make it a good audit. However, the audit did state that they did not identify any unusual significant transactions, as stated on page 4 of the audit, and there were no significant difficulties in dealing with management, and that was also stated on page 4. And that also indicates that nobody's trying to hide anything or what's going on with fraud. We did have one material weakness, and that was there were audit adjustments. That was noted on page 6 of the audit. And this was attributed to an employee that was struggling with financial recordings and working with QuickBooks. We also had 2 significant deficiencies listed on page 7. The first one was the preparation of financial statements, which again falls back to the lack of knowledge that the employee, the knowledge and training that the employee had at the time. And then the second deficiency was in segregation of duties, and just about every single small organization is going to have segregation of duties listed there. So, with every audit also comes management advisory comments. And these are things that the organization can do to improve and have a smoother audit in the future. They are not deficiencies and they are not material weaknesses. They're just areas that we can improve on. The auditors, Hawkins Ash, gave us 6 areas to improve on. One of those areas was grant management. Under grant management, it was noted that expenses were double booked on 2 separate grants, one of them being a city grant. It is not that On Broadway didn't have the qualified expenses, it was a reporting error and not a fraud. No money went out to anyone and nobody personally benefited from it. When you're thinking about fraud, fraud is the deliberate deception or manipulation with the intent to deceive others for personal gain. That did not occur here. What it was we had somebody in the place that couldn't do the role that they're hired to do. Since then, that person in that role has been replaced, and we have somebody in that position that is qualified and is now taking over and cleaning up the incidents. I met with the executive director and the current office manager, and we discussed the changes that need to be made. The first change was obviously to the position and the qualifications to the personnel maintaining the financial records. Our current office manager has already compiled a list of expenses and provided that to the city to show the qualified expenses that On Broadway did incur. We've also discussed separating the public market and the Old Fort Square expenses just to create more segregation. And we've created draft cost allocation and gift acceptance policies. We've talked about updating the employee handbook and ensuring every employee has a copy. And again, we've addressed the cause of all the financial recording deficiencies that were noted. After the management letters, there's also representation letters. These are letters that the organization gives back to the accounting firm. The wording in these representation letters are generally provided by the accounting firm. What happened is, in this case, what was called out was there was a sentence in there that states that it could be construed to mean that the financial statements are materially misstated as a result of a fraud. However, you go down 2 lines and it states, quote, "We have no knowledge of fraud or suspected fraud." And the very next line states, "We have no knowledge of any allegation of fraud or suspected fraud." This is a boilerplate language. It's not an admission of guilt. Nobody did anything wrong. What it is, it's covering saying they can't say that there's not fraud, because fraud can be hidden, especially with collusion. Collusion's one of those, when you think about WorldCom, Bernie Madoff, FTX, Theranos, frauds are gonna occur. So this is kind of a catch-all that's in there. What I also did is I pulled the 2019 to 2020 letter, as well as the 2021 and the 2022. And that same language is in all the years. So it is not something new this year. So in closing, I just want to say that On Broadway did have a clean, unqualified opinion in 2022. And yes, there's areas we can improve on, but we are continuing to address those and improve the organization. So I'll take questions and answer any I can. Yes?
Go ahead.
Just regarding the letter from Ms. Peters about the different steps the organization can take, which I know are typical, are there anything concrete in the hiring processes then in terms of the grant, person responsible for the grants and oversight of the grants that you've done?
For me overseeing,
For the organization, has the organization put safeguards in place so that that doesn't happen again, where someone's hired without the qualifications to handle the grants?
we have discussed that with Brian, and yes, that was something that we've talked, we sat down before he made the hiring about qualifications we were looking for in a person. So I don't think there's a policy on what we're looking for, it's just knowing what we had to look for in the next person.
I think the biggest change there, Michael, is we had program managers who were completing the forms, but an office manager who was just giving them whatever they wanted. And the internal operating policy modification that was made is our office manager now does all of it, right? So everything's coming into one person, and there's no opportunity for a redundant.
And that
Yeah.
responds to the needs, like for during classes and training and that type of thing regarding the management of the grants.
We have not, like, we haven't added on to any additional training or qualifications in that manner,
Okay.
but that is definitely something that we would discuss.
Any further questions?
All right, thank you for your time.
Thank
Motion to close the floor. Second.
you. Motion by Commissioner Vinsky, second by Commissioner Pryor to close the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's to approve, yeah, to
Yes.
approve the audit.
Motion to approve. Second.
A motion by Commissioner Vinsky, second by Commissioner Daniels. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And then that will go forward to City Council, is it next Tuesday? I don't know what day it is, but May something or other. May 6th, 7th, May 7th, all right, thank you.
Thank you guys for the thorough report.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to item number 2. And item number 2 is a public hearing. This public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Press Times. The Plan Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items. We invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, whether you favor, oppose, or are only providing information in this matter, and your comments or concerns. We also ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. City staff will provide a presentation during the public hearing, and questions raised by the public may be asked, but they will not be answered by staff until the upcoming actionable item. You must be recognized by the Plan Commission in order to speak, and please address your comments to the chair. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. We will now open the public hearing on item number 2. Public hearing on request to rezone 715 Marquette Avenue from Office Residential District and Low Density Residential District to Low Density Residential District, submitted by Department of Community and Economic Development on behalf of Linda Kramer, property owner.
I'm going to kick this one off for you. This is going to be presented by our planning intern, Carmen Anderson. She has been with us all semester. We don't normally have our interns do presentations at Plan Commission, but she was here more as a job shadow and wanted to really get a feel for what the planning team does. So she has run this completely by herself. Please don't be soft on her just because she's an intern. If you have questions, please ask them. But this is part of a rezoning request, so if there's anything else that comes up, please direct them to Carmen so that way she can answer them for you.
Thanks, thank you.
Try to answer. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward here. So this is just an overview of the area we're looking at. We're on the west side of the city. So Market Avenue is off of West Mason Street. Just one thing to note, so directly north of the subject parcel, this multi-unit building is no longer there. This has been torn down. That parcel is zoned office residential, so this won't have anything interfere with the subject parcel. It's currently being used for parking right now. To the east, we have the Tower Clock Eye Center, and then to the west, we have a plaza, a smoke shop there. It used to be a pharmacy, Salvation Army. And then directly to the south, this is just all residential housing, so the zoning is going to match what we're going to be looking at here. So now if we go to the next, this is the house that we're looking at. This has been a single-family house for about like 60 plus years. So we're not looking to change what this property or what this land is used for. The land use will stay the same. So it's already a single-family R1. So we're looking to keep it the same. So now if we look at the zoning map currently, we have a split zoning situation. There's a spike strip here to kind of separate non-residential and residential uses. However, I need to fit what the current land use is being used for. We want to just clean this up and make it all low residential zoning. So all to the south, it's all already single family, low residential, so this is just going to blend in with the neighborhood already. So this is future land use. As you can see, that office residential that was to the north, that will be the same. It's not going to impact any of the surrounding properties. But yeah, the comprehensive plan and the future land use already dictates this as being low residential. So we're just trying to stay consistent with that in making this property completely R1 low residential and getting rid of that split zoning situation. So essentially that's just it, pretty straightforward. I'm just trying to do a cleanup action.
All right, thank you, Carmen. All right, so now with the public hearing, we're looking to hear from anyone who'd like to speak on this item. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to
Are they
speak?
going to tear down that house? Or they planning to?
If there's anyone, you can certainly speak on this item if you'd like, but we don't answer any questions in the public
Okay.
hearing. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? No, you good? Okay, all right. All right, let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 3, consideration with possible action on the request to rezone 715 Marquette Avenue from office residential district and low-density residential district to low-density residential district, submitted by Department of Community and Economic Development on behalf of Linda Kramer, property owner.
Yep, so just to maintain consistency with the future land use and current land use, keeping it all single-family, low residential, staff recommends approval of the request.
You can ask a question.
I was getting confused.
So that lot is half, that split lot right now, it's half zone 1 and half, is that what that lot is?
It's currently office residential.
It was kind of like a
and then
buffer kind of thing?
low
that we-
residential, yeah.
that kind of-
Yeah, so it's just a cleanup, so will the house
Right,
remain there?
yeah. That house is a
Yeah.
mistake.
The house is gonna stay
This is
there.
good
It's just a
house.
cleanup. It's a good
Yeah.
house.
It is, it's a fine house.
Not
It's a
looking
fine
to
house.
turn
It's a
it.
fine
There.
It just wants to all be R1.
Cleanup, just a cleanup.
It just wants to be R1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Craddock, second by Commissioner Ravinsky. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that will then move forward to City Council for May 7th. Moving on to item number 4, which is a public hearing. This public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Press Times The Plan Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda item. We invite your comments and ask you, after your name is called, you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, whether you favor, oppose, or only providing information in this matter, and your comments and concerns. We also ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. City staff will provide a presentation during the public hearing, and questions raised by the public may be asked, but the Plan Commission will not, may be asked, but they will not be answered by staff until the upcoming actionable item. You must be recognized by the Plan Commission in order to speak, and please address your comments to the chair. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. We'll now open the public hearing on item number 4. Public hearing on a request to rezone property from business park to light industrial at 1709 and 1745 Maureen Terrace, submitted by US LMB LLC 2009, doing business as Builder Supply on behalf of Imbar LLC property owner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm handling this one this evening. So on the PowerPoint, you can see the properties that are in question are highlighted in red. It involves 2 parcels. 1745 Moraine Terrace is currently the site of Wisconsin Building Supply. And then 1709 is now owned or will be used hopefully for Wisconsin Building Supply as well. And both of these properties are zoned business park. You can go to the next slide. Again, here's the zoning of the area. So the subject properties are zoned business park, and the parcels around it are as well, with the exception of properties to the southeast. And those properties are zoned light industrial. And then to the south, you've got low density residential, so all housing. And then to the west, you have public institutional uses, and then some single family properties. It also, or a single family, low density residential zone parcel, but there isn't anything on it, it's currently vacant. And then to the north is the village of Howard, and there's a lot of multifamily, and then some mixed single family with two family housing. Go to the next slide. For the future land use, the subject parcels are shown as light industrial, as well as those other areas in that, I guess, quote-unquote business park. And then you can see that the other areas around it do conform with the uses, such as the houses are shown as low-density residential, and then the schools and church are shown as public institutional. Go to the next slide. So here's a better, I guess you can say, aerial view of the property. So you can see that the existing parcel does have quite a bit of outdoor storage. And in the business park district, you can only have up to 25% of your site can have outdoor storage. Clearly they're well over that, but they did buy this new parcel, which just kind of has a outbuilding on it, and they want to use this and fence it in and include it with the parcel. They also own this parcel back here as well that's zoned light industrial. And this one is on Morley Road. And they would like to combine all of these parcels into one parcel. And in order to do that, you have to have the zoning be the same, and currently they're not the same. The future land use does show the site should be light industrial, so the proposed zoning does conform with that. we did hear, we did notice property owners within 400 feet. We did get notification from the alder, Ben DeLee, who did have contact with a neighbor. And I did get a subsequent email from that neighbor regarding a noise violation, excuse me, not noise violation, a light violation that's currently being handled with our code compliance team. And those items do need to be brought into conformance. I believe we're going to be here to speak on it, so I won't address it unless they aren't here. And then I did get a phone call from the neighbor that has the residential vacant piece to the west, and it was mostly just questions about what was exactly happening, but no opposition. Anyway, I'll leave it with that.
All right, thank you. All right, so now with this public hearing, we're looking to hear from anyone who would like to speak on this item.
I would like to, if I could.
From the podium, state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Mike Petrina. I'm the plant manager for that location, 1745 Marine Terrace. Appreciate everybody's time. Our 102 employees we have currently, obviously appreciate the opportunity to work at that facility there. With that new parcel that our landowner has, we want to put it all, like she said, all together as one. As far as the lighting, I just want to address that. We're working with the neighbors. We had a light where it looked like headlights in his backyard, so we addressed that right away. We have other lights that are still glaring. We're working on it. We're working with our electrician right now to get a boom truck for our parking lot lights. The lights are all the same. They've been there since it's been constructed, but we did change them to LED, so they are a little brighter, so we do need to work on that. We will work on that and fix that for Troy and as we go forward. So I got maybe another week of work to do with the lighting, and I'll address that, and hopefully we're in good shape from there. That's all I got.
All right, thank you.
My name's Jennifer Burkhardt. I am the property owner at 1736 Bond Street, and this lumber yard is behind my home. Back in March, I filed a complaint with the then alderman, I think his name is Mark, about noise because there's a train track that runs behind my home. I think that's how the lumber yard gets their materials over to their lumber yard. I've lived there for 9 years, and finally, at 3 o'clock in the morning, that train was idling on the tracks behind my house. Kept me awake all night. So I have concerns about this rezoning as well, of what does that mean for noise to us homeowners on that property? Is this going to decrease our property value? I'm just concerned that the noise is already a concern to me, and it's just going to get worse and worse if this zoning happens. Like, I don't understand what is allowed when this rezoning happens, because that wasn't indicated on here. I tried looking on the city website. I couldn't find anything about what that means for light industrial, what noise they're allowed to make, at what times they're allowed to make it, because I already think Business Park, with that train idling behind my house and the reverberation on my house, and like I could just feel it vibrating, and it's all I could hear all night long. I think that was probably a noise violation, which is why I emailed about that. There's already noise going on till 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night with banging and, I don't know, pallet jacks moving stuff around back there, which we've largely ignored for 9 years, but the train, that was it. So that's a concern. I'm against this rezoning. I don't think enough information was given to us as residents to tell us exactly what that would mean as far as how it impacts us, especially in the evening time hours. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
I would like to add a comment if possible.
Go ahead and state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure, my name is Julie Severson. I live at 1750 Bond Street, which is a home just off the residential off of this area as well. My home was the one that we did file the light complaint for this property, and it is definitely something that I just want to make sure I reiterate that that's something that needs to be like to be taken care of. I also have some concerns about the amount of outdoor storage that's at this site. As was mentioned, It's only allowed right now to have up to 25%, and you can see they're clearly in violation or over the outdoor storage. We have seen it along the driveway. If I'm looking to the east of the property, it's all along that driveway out to the road. And we can see it above the fence in the backyard too, from our back home. So I would like to see, or get some more information on how they are going to be prepared to handle that, as well as the other concerns that the other resident has stated regarding noise from the railroad, as well as the work that is getting done behind the building. So again, I am right now opposed to this as well. Also waiting for more information to be sent to us and communicated to us before any more decisions are made.
All right, thank you so much. Go ahead with your hand raised. I think others, or Mark, you're muted. Or is this?
No, it's still muted.
Sorry,
What just happened?
that's me.
There you go. Try again, Alder. Former Alder.
Former Alder, yeah.
Sorry.
I know, me too. What do we call them? Mark.
Citizens. I don't know. He's off mute.
Yeah, Alder, I think we're having issues with your personal computer on this.
I think he gave up, yeah. We'll wave this off, okay. Oh, wait, no, definitely not.
No, sir. Can't hear you, Mark.
No. All right. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Go ahead, state your name and address for the record. Please take yourself off mute.
Okay. My name is Donna Yankee. I live at 1770 Bond Street. I also have concerns about the lighting and the noise. Therefore, I'd be opposed to doing this.
Okay, thank you so much for your testimony. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 5, consideration with possible action on a request to rezone property from business park to light industrial at 1709 and 1745 Maureen Terrace, submitted by US LNB LLC 2009, doing business as Builder Supply on behalf of Imbar LLC property owner.
Thank you. One of the slides that I didn't mention in my previous comments was I was curious too about the outdoor storage issue and how we got so much outdoor storage when the code only allows 25%. So here's an and then an aerial from 2005. So you can see the construction, and actually this outdoor storage that is shown in 2005 is the same. If you want to back up in slides, as what pretty much is there today. So what we feel happened is that David had said that the code had changed in 2005 or so. So those regulations very well could have changed at that time, and that's kind of how it got to be where it is today. But we were curious about that too, what exactly happened out there. So they've been complying, but now as they expand, you can't make it any worse. You can't do any more. So again, that's why they need, or they're asking for this rezoning request. Our recommendation is to approve it. It does comply with the future land use map. There were, comments mentioned about the noise and the light. We do have regulations that do need to be met for that use. So anytime there is a violation for any use in the city, folks can go online and report those concerns that they have. So for instance, the nighttime stuff, it's, let's see, daytime hours is 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Nighttime hours are 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. So they do need to comply with those noise regulations. What's typical during the day might be a little louder than what's acceptable at night. But regardless, those standards do need to be met by the user. So anytime that there is an issue, even if it's existing, they definitely need to let us know. And the same goes for lighting. There's currently, like I said, a issue with lighting that they have been working to correct. And that needs to get corrected. That's not fair to those neighbors to have that light shining in their yard, in their homes, so that does need to be corrected. And then the inspector is going to go out there and do a measurement to make sure that it is in compliance.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
So now, has that property been in operation as it is for the last 19 years, since 2005?
Yes.
Okay. So now, we already know that they're, as far as with the zoning that they're currently in, they're over on storage, but that has something to do with possible zoning changes at the exact time that this building was built.
Yeah.
And the lighting is something that inspectors are working on at this point?
Correct.
Does this property have anything to do with that train?
I believe so.
Okay, they do
And
use the
that
train
might be a
for-
good
okay.
question to ask them that I haven't spoken to them about.
So what does it really, as far as going from business park to light industrial, what other things are we allowing going from one to the other?
Well, they have their own set of uses that differ. I think with business park, you generally see a lot more green space, obviously by the amount of outdoor storage. So you are getting a more intense, I guess you could say, industrial usage out there. The next higher category is general industrial, so you're not getting to that level that some of the larger scale manufacturers are doing. But no matter what use is there, they still need to comply with all of our nuisance requirements. Yeah.
I'd like to open the floor so we can have a few questions about the train and answer some of those concerns.
Okay.
Yeah. Motion to open the floor.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Craddock, second by Alder Hutchinson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then we'd like to, I guess we have questions for the applicant in regards to the train?
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
We're gonna stand up.
Yes, please.
Okay. Yeah, as far as the train, that's run by the railroad, there's
Right.
that corridor there. I don't have control of when they come into our facility. They push the cars in based on their schedule. I know right now we got 6 cars up in Crivets that we're waiting for material to build for our customers, right? So they can push it at any time, any day. That'd be something I have to bring up with the railroad company as far as the timing of that. So I've never had control over it. I've been working there since 2002. The building was built in 2000. And it's been like that every year since I've been there as far as the storage and amount of area. We supply 13 locations throughout the state. We we have lumber yards throughout the state. We got one in Green Bay, one in Appleton, one in Fond du Lac, one in Sussex, one in Windsor, one in Onalaska, one in Plover, one in Marinette, one in Merrill. We also have a Sturgeon Bay, Sister Bay, Eagle River, and Mauston location. All those yards send trusses to us or quotes to us, and we manufacture those trusses throughout the state from that one facility. So that storage is very minimal for the amount of volume we have to do, just because of normal scheduling to our customers. So that is needed in order to function correctly for our customers and build product for the residents of Wisconsin. So we're just trying to get it all in the right use state. I don't think the storage is really a nuisance to anybody. I think it's more the lighting, which we're going to address, and go from there.
Will the additional parcel, will that expand the pavement and the storage area? Is that the idea?
That is the idea. The one in the southwest corner there that we're leasing the property, obviously, from the owner to give us a little more space, because eventually we would like to potentially expand that building to be able to get more volume out the door. In order to do that, we also need a little bit extra storage in that southeast corner.
And how often is the train coming to the property? Approximately?
It varies, but, maybe once a week, or sometimes it'll come 3 times a week, and now it hasn't come in like the last 3 weeks. So it kind of varies.
And then in reference to the train, like, it's based on the railroad schedule.
Yeah,
So nothing to do with-
we order the material and it just shows up when it shows up. That's pretty much.
They tell you 3 a.m. and it comes at 3 a.m.
They don't even tell us.
Okay.
They don't.
Have people,
Yeah.
have people there to receive it. I mean, they're not.
Well, they push it into our gate. They push it in our gate, so in the morning when we show up, if it's there, we can unload it, and we have 2 days to unload it, so they can pick it up. And they can pick it up at any time as well.
Question about the engine running. So is it, they push the cars in and the engine just stays on, or what? What happens?
I don't know the particular situation, if they were just sitting there for some reason, I'm not sure. Obviously, they gotta move some of the cars out of the way, put the new cars in, so I don't know why they would have been sitting there an excess amount of time at that time. I couldn't answer that.
Okay.
But the assumption would be when you're building more areas for storage and things, that you're gonna have more deliveries, assumingly.
Yeah, this time of
Trains
year.
will become a bigger problem than it is right now. That's the
Yeah,
concern I think we all have.
Yeah, you got it right. Yeah, I mean, right now, we're building product, because, in the next few weeks, Memorial Day is coming, everybody wants this product, and it's physically impossible to ship it all one day, right? So we got to kind of build ahead to be prepared for our customers, so that's why it's there.
Any further questions for the applicant?
I lived in Menominee.
Actually, I'm sorry, all comments are addressed to the chair. So if you want to speak, you can come up and speak, but we don't ask questions directly to the chair.
All their stories are.
Is he back?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think I'm in.
Okay, yep, we can hear you.
All right, thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Yep.
Go
Sorry
ahead,
about
Mark.
getting in before. My name is Mark Stoyer, 1730 Nancy Avenue. And as it was stated, I was the alder for the last 12 years. So, I was here for a lot of some of the development of this property, and of course, we've been dealing with the lighting issues and the light noise issues and such. And I've had a chance to meet with Mike and his staff, along with our city electrical inspector over the last number of weeks about the lighting issue, but that's another point. I guess the question I had of staff, well, of course, can I relate this to staff, or do I have to talk to who is talking right now?
You're addressing the commission.
Okay. So, I guess one of the questions I have is that it was a business park designation for all this time, and I guess I'm maybe not totally surprised, but it was a business park of sorts. Now it has light industrial leanings, as you will. I'm just wondering why that other parcel hadn't been changed some time ago, or was it just because of the request that's come through now?
Are you referring to the existing light industrial? Why that's,
Well,
That
what
was
needs to be rezoned according to the request, it was listed as business park and now it's
Yep.
going to be light industrial.
correct,
Is the only reason that is happening is because of the request of
correct.
Wisconsin
Right.
builders
Correct.
at this time.
It needs to be cleaned up, they all have to have the same zoning in order for them to move forward, and they have
Right.
different zoning at this point.
This is not a city-initiated or a department-initiated rezone. This is
Because
applicant requested.
I know the city in the past has had situations where, zoning is not compliant with certain projects, and it's been an issue at times. I think one of the issues that I've had to deal with over time is the fact that you have businesses, et cetera, that line up or are adjacent to residential areas. And that happens throughout the city. It's always been an issue, whether it's lighting or noise or what have you. And I guess I do have some concern about this as well. As some of the citizens stated, I've been in their backyards, I've seen things, I'm just wondering, it's a large complex, and will this rezoning, it'll allow more storage, et cetera. And I think that is maybe the concern that I'm hearing, is that when you rezone this, you're gonna have more activity, more storage of items, et cetera. It's a big plant, so I guess, we're, in one breath, I am not against industry or development generally. It's just when it comes up close to residential areas where I have a little bit of a concern. So I guess with that being said, the alder is not, I don't think the alder's here right now. I'm talking as a citizen right now, not as an alder. So I guess what I've heard is that folks are kind of against it at this time. So unless I can be told that this is going to be totally effective and needed and it won't disturb the neighborhood, I would be initially against it myself. Granted, it goes to council on Tuesday for final say, and there's other elements or other things that can be brought up. But I would need to see better proof that there won't be appreciable more noise or activity that would cause some concern with the neighbors. So that's what I have right now.
Okay, thank you. So now, do we know, so do we know offhand how much more outdoor storage they're planning on having?
No.
Or if we rezone it to light industrial, then all of the parcels that they have, they'd be able to do outdoor storage on, is that what I'm understanding?
What does that do for the 25%?
Whatever grandfathered in.
They're grandfathered in for the existing, but any additional, if it's all one parcel?
The new zoning doesn't have a restriction on
The
it.
new zoning does not.
Does not.
That's, thank you. Thanks for clarification.
It has a screening restriction, but not an area.
Gotcha. The business part is what has the 25. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
How much screening exists? Is it screened from view of adjacent properties?
It's got that trail.
It's kind of in a weird spot
It
where
is.
there's no houses directly adjacent. I think the screening is probably more for the light, not the product, would be my guess, just on the posts. It looks like a 6 to 8 inch fence though. for the most
Right.
part.
Some of the text said though, it's
6 to 8
an important
feet.
point about screening.
Yeah, they do need to provide, so they are gonna have to do a site plan with any additions that they do, and they're gonna be adding some fencing, or their plan is to add some fencing and some gates, because they need to reconfigure, they wanna reconfigure the site to accommodate the additional parcels. And then as part of the zoning ordinance, it is required to provide screening. I believe it's 90%. I don't.
On which, yeah, on the business park, it's 90% impervious.
Oh, no, sorry.
There's no percentage on the light industrial.
Correct. I'm talking about the screening of the fencing. That would be under our landscape buffer.
Well, yeah, if I could step in. So in light industrial and general industrial districts, it has no area requirement on outdoor storage, no regulations. So you have a maximum of 80% of the lot can be covered with hard surface, but outdoor storage has to be completely screened. So that's going to be a solid fence. In the business park, you're limited to 25% of the lot area for outdoor storage, and that has the 90% screening. The buffer yard, which often comes when you're adjacent residential to industrial or commercial, would not come into effect because the railroad tracks are in between the two users.
So going to light industrial, are we going to be gaining a fence and more screening?
Potentially, if they expand. That expansion area would have to meet full screening requirements. The way it sits now, the lot is considered legal non-conforming. It's over the 25%, so they would not be allowed to expand whatsoever.
Right, because they need it also. Is there anyone else that is looking to speak on this? You certainly come up and state your name and address.
Jennifer Burkhardt, 1736 Bond Street. I'm confused about the train. The track runs behind my house. I've never seen it go much further past my house, and then it just goes straight back to where it came from, and it's 2 cars. So I don't know where this train is coming from or how it's coming into the plant, but I've never seen this train with 2 cars go much further past my house, and then it goes straight back. I see more people walking down that track as a trail than I do. I don't understand where the train's coming from.
Thank you. Right.
I mean, it's a railroad.
I mean,
It's
we
not-
agree, they don't have any.
Yeah.
What does, there has to be some sort of, are there any regulations in the city regarding trains? and-
Only the horns.
Only the-
Well, there
So not
are.
idling or anything like that?
There are, they have to follow, so the railroads have a kind of a strange relationship with the country. Where they have a lot of autonomy. However, you know, lot cleanup of rail yards is something they are responsible for. I would have to look into, you know, if you could limit the hours of operation. I don't believe you can. But you might be able to limit noise levels or idling times. I'm not sure. I would have to look into it. Again, railroads have kind of their own special rules in the United States.
So would that be a maybe state representative concern to bring to, I know the city has no jurisdiction in this, but is it a state thing, just so she could escalate that maybe?
Federal?
Federal maybe?
Yeah. What I would recommend is make a noise complaint, and then our inspection division would go and research that and see what they can actually do. As far as requiring the railroads to not idle for longer than a certain time. These are all, again, just coming out of my head, so I don't know what the regulations are. But that would be, the inspectors would be the group that could investigate that and find out what, they may even know about it.
And then what was included in the letter to the residents about it within the zone, the notifications?
The date and time of the meeting, who the applicant is, the reason for the request, we do a who, we do a who, a what, a when, and a where, and a why.
And when did you send it out?
So we send that out 10 days prior to the meeting.
Motion to close the floor.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Pratt, second by Commissioner Rovinsky to close the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
So it's a tough one.
I would,
No,
I can't see. Do you have something?
Arm wrestle for it.
No, I mean, I guess, you know, I'm going back to the issues. One, the applicant nor the government controls the noise.
As far as
I mean, the train.
Right.
And the other major issue with the lighting, which seems to already be addressed. They're working on, the applicant is working on it. So, I don't like the term grandfather, because it's not an inclusive term, but if they have been grandfathered in, the storage has been there for 19 years, I don't consider the storage a problem. So,
And a good term to use there is legal non-conforming.
legal non-conforming,
non-conforming.
thank you. All right.
Is there an ability to, if the rail is on the property, to confine the noise somehow with walls around the delivery area? Or, I mean, if it's an issue.
Code would have to be changed to allow that. Again, this is just a straight rezoning request, so you can't put any conditions on it. And you can't require any special treatment that the code doesn't require. I mean, you could put up the screening is really meant for visibility.
The screening is meant for visibility,
Not necessarily noise, especially from vehicle that's coming from off-site. And I can't answer the question of person, well, the tracks only go as far as Bond, but they go fully through the county. So my maps show me right up to the Brown County limits, and then they continue on. And there's a lot of interchanges to the north. So it's probably more active to the north, and this is probably the end of the line. As it changes at Bond Street, it changes to the, I believe, Edgar Trail system, the Rails to Trails program.
So I'm in favor. One thing that came up is that as they're expanding, they're looking at maybe changing where their entrance is or where the flow of their truck traffic goes, which I know is a site plan review thing, nothing that we really plays into effect here, but just that going forward when that would come in, that city staff be cognizant of our neighbors in Howard, because there are residential properties across there, just so, you know, as we're approving that, we make sure the truck traffic is in an appropriate place for all of our neighbors, not just Green Bay, but Howard as well. Like, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Vinsky, a second by Commissioner Daniels. Do we have any further discussion?
Madam Chair, I think that there's more information I think that we can provide to the public for them to have a good understanding of the project and understanding the concerns. There was a lot of concerns brought up. I think that we just need to get some more information, and I think hopefully the city department can provide that so that we have a good discussion on that. So I will make a motion to lay this item on the table until the next scheduled meeting to allow for more information and more discussion by neighbors.
We have to resolve it
I was
first.
going to say, we have to-
Actually, I think you can run the whole, if you get the second.
Oh, okay.
I'm good with that.
Do we have a second? Then that motion dies.
Correct.
And then we go back to the original motion. All right, any further discussion on that motion?
Just to back up what you were saying there, and I mean, they're here requesting this because they want to make improvements to this. So yes, we're bringing it into compliance, but we're also giving them the opportunity for site plan reviews to come through staff that can improve the site from what it is currently. For that reason, I am also in favor to have that work proceed.
I mean, you go back to the root causes of the issue, it's not storage. It's lighting that I've heard and noise, the one which we can't control, the other one they're addressing.
All right. Hearing no further discussion, we'll go ahead with the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
All right, so we've got 5-4, 1 against, and then that will go forward to City Council for May 7th. Moving on to item number 6, which is a public hearing. This public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Press Times. The Plan Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items. We invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, whether you favor, oppose, or only providing information, and your comments or concerns. We ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. City staff will give a presentation during the public hearing, and questions raised by the public may be asked, but they will not be answered by staff until the upcoming actionable item. You must be recognized by the Plan Commission in order to speak, and please address your comments to the chair. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. We'll now open the public hearing on item number 6, public hearing on a request to rezone parcel 21-7596 from rural residential district to general commercial district at 3000 block of Finger Road, submitted by Brett Paul of Excite Real Estate on behalf of First Security Credit Union property owner.
Madam Chair. So the property looking at here is at the corners of East Mason, Ontario, and Finger. You happen to have a review back in January for a strip mall coffee shop across the way. And you're receiving here a similar request when it comes to this rezone and CUP. So it's 2 items. The property is being requested to be rezoned, and then also requested to have a CUP on top of that C1 zoning. So we'll first look at this through the lens of a rezone. I'll try to give you a background on it to make contextual sense to what it means for the CUP, but there are 2 separate items here when we're considering this. If these were to be approved, the rezone had to be done first. That takes 2 hearings at the Common Council, whereas the CUP takes 1, but because we don't want to have a second meeting to essentially state the exact same thing over again and take up time with folks, we're going to just do this with 1 meeting. So first things first, the rezone. As you look at the property, here's another overview. The I-43 Business Park is to the south. This is a property that we talked about back in January, and we have residential homes off to the north. The existing future land use calls for commercial on the site. It's called that for a while. And so with the rezone, looking to change it from RR to C1 to commercial. Why that? Why not just go to one that would say make highway commercial the standard, and we would avoid the CUP? Well, we look at this as far as what was zoned off to the east. That was an AC1 designation. And looking at the size and functionality of this lot, it's not particularly large. It's near a gateway to a neighborhood, so felt that the designation of being a junk commercial fit in well based off of what could be on the site, not just this one proposal, but the site at large. And that comes into play with what the group is looking to do. So this is a Ziggy's Coffee that's being proposed, but they're looking to put it onto the east side of the property. With that in mind, this is a larger parcel in general. Staff is recommending rezoning the entire parcel at large to encourage future commercial growth in the future for the western part of the property. This is your view looking to the north, the southeast corner, looking northwest of the property from Mason and Ontario. You'll see Finger off to the north. This is a proposed conceptual site plan of the property. So the further about 0.7 acres of the property is being proposed as a coffee shop. You'll note there'll be a proposal, a shared driveway to have access for commercial back off to the west in the future. They have no plans for that at the time, but what they're bringing forth here is a site plan for a coffee shop. In general, this conceptual site plan does meet what needs to be done for this site. There'll be a few conditions that'll be noted when we get to the CUP portion of the property. But in general, this site can fit this. There will be, in the future, if this were to go through the approval process, there'll need to be a variance. And that's going to happen with essentially any use in this property. This goes back to having 3 fronts in the property. And when you have 3 fronts, you have, in this case, keeping a drive-through, you have to keep that drive-through behind the front of the property, and trying to make the lanes and traffic flow work in the context of the site. You happen to have a menu board that is in the front of the property itself along Mason Street. We'll get more into details on that with the CUP, but in general, we're looking at what does it mean for the overall acreage on the site, and this would change the designation from RR to C1.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, now with this public hearing, we're looking to hear from anyone who would like to speak on this item. You can go ahead and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Christy Carter. I am at 3035 Finger Road, and I'm opposed to both
both motions, the one that he's discussing now and the next one. We are almost directly across from, well, we're down just a little bit, but almost directly across. And that Finger Road has changed. We've been there 23 years, not quite the original owners of the house, but it's changed. Finger Road has become very dangerous street. There's a lot of residential houses there, and for our children and things like that, we don't allow them to ride their bikes or pretty much do anything on Finger because of how dangerous it's become. And with the Uncle Mike's being added, obviously that has added significant traffic to the street as well. People go, anywhere from 40, 50 miles an hour down that street on a daily basis. So very dangerous. And like I said, we never let our kids ride their bikes or walk. My daughter walks from Challenger down to our house every day off the bus. That's an issue with the busing company that we have as well, but that is a super dangerous walk, I feel, for her. So adding anything, I'm guessing that the proposal will have, the driveway will be on Finger Road. So again, that makes that even more of a dangerous location and site for our kids. Also looking at property values, things like that will definitely go down. But really the biggest issue is the safety of that street and, for the families and kids. There are quite a few, houses there that have kids. And so, I was opposed to the other one. I did send messages and things like that. So, that's added, traffic and things to the road as well. So I feel that is a huge safety issue to add something like that on the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 7. Consideration with possible action on a request to rezone parcel 21-7596 from rural residential district to general commercial district at 3000 block of Finger Road, submitted by Brett Paul of Excite Real Estate on behalf of First Century Credit Union property owner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So to follow up on some of the questions here, there was a neighbor meeting that was done a few weeks back regarding this. There was nobody at that meeting. The same group that was identified, everybody within 400 feet of the property, and the neighborhood itself was noticed for this letter here. We had some feedback that came from folks via calls, mostly questions, just asking what's up, is there another coffee shop happening in this area? And traffic was brought up in those questions too, not necessarily opposed, but just questions about it. We do have Director Grenier here from DPW on this. We asked DPW if there's a need for a TA on this. The road itself is an improved road here. Unlike what you had off to the east, this is an improved Finger Road. So the road itself is about 38 feet wide, which is quite large, especially for a street that does not have any sort of existing access points to come on into the to future developments. So some of the issues that have happened in the past on this way are twofold. One, with it being so wide and a road that's relatively in good shape, this does lead to people, so wide and not having these intersections where people are possibly having points of impact, it leads to people who speed down this road. Adding in this commercial in the future should, in theory, slow that down for people, either consciously or subconsciously, because of more access points for people to potentially connect in there. Additionally, with it being so long, people have gone through this intersection itself over at Ontario, either not paying attention or actively going too fast with the two-way stop that occurs over at the intersection itself. So DPO did not feel there was a need for a TIA with this, and because of the placement of the coffee shop within the relative context where they are proposing to place it on the farthest western part of the property and have a shared access into, staff felt okay with this, noting that an intersection, or sorry, a driveway has to be put somewhere on the property, and the place where it can go is it can come off Finger Road, not Mason and not Ontario.
So now I noticed the site plan, seems, I mean, it's not official, but the thoughtfulness of where the menu board is facing onto Mason and then the window being on Ontario. With these new developments out here, they're even required to put sidewalks? Because I mean, that's a lot of the problem with not being able to walk out there. There's no sidewalks.
Right, there's the one sidewalk right now that occurs over on Ontario, but as far as Finger itself goes, I don't believe we have a requirement at the moment to.
No, so the zoning code's gonna deal primarily with private property, not the right of way. So an alder can request a sidewalk study be done, if the engineering department feels that traffic volume's warranted, they could order it in. But as far as our purview on the private property, we would require pedestrian access out to the sidewalk on Ontario, because one exists, but we couldn't make them put it in the street.
And part of their plans, as far as what you see here and why, when it would come to a variance, which we'll get more into in the CUP, they made it known, like their building itself is small. It is meant to be a drive-through or a walk-up, but they have a large plaza area. And when talking with the developers back at the neighborhood meeting, their goal was to have a large area to take advantage of the large amount of neighbors to the north who don't have walkable places to go to come use the plaza outside. That would both hit a new niche in the market and hit what is expected of them as far as FAR requirements. Outdoor usable space does count as your FAR, and they have a large patio area. And in the future, if they chose to want to expand their store, they have a natural area to expand upon them too, off on the western part of this conceptual site plan.
So the difference between this item and the one we reviewed like for 2.5 hours last time was that this road has been improved, whereas the other one has not.
Right, the other road is not, and staff felt it was still appropriate to keep it in that way at the moment, that there had not been a confluence of events to where it was required that you put it in. Now, could there be in the future with the addition of that strip mall and the dental clinic and daycare and presumably other developments? We went back to then, there was at that point, as far as the linear footage, it was something like 15% of that actual long block had been developed at that point, and adding in that strip mall added a few more percentage points. So yeah, in the future, there most likely should be improvements, but we're not there yet.
Chicken and egg.
Do we need to open the floor for city staff or?
No.
Staff.
No.
Okay, I'd like to ask Public Works Director some questions.
Certainly.
Okay.
Come on down.
Now, on the other developments on this road, you have rightly said, as soon as the development gets to a point, then you'll be looking at Finger Road in terms of redevelopment, including sidewalks to the north. What's your position now with this new development?
Typically, sidewalks are driven by subdivision. A land division, that's when the subdivision code is where the sidewalk requirements are located. Right now, they're not proposing any type of a land division. There's no CSM, there's no plat being proposed at this point.
For this property?
For this parcel.
Well, I'm talking about.
I understand. I'm giving you a background on where the requirements for sidewalk typically come from.
Gotcha.
Exclusive of a land division process, residents or an alder could request a sidewalk study on any parcel, any block, at any time. That would first come through the Traffic, Bicycle, and Pedestrian Commission. Traffic, Bike, and Ped would review that, determine whether a need for a sidewalk study exists. Sidewalk study would be completed. If sidewalk is deemed necessary, they would make a recommendation to Improvement Services Committee, because Traffic, Bike, and Ped is advisory, they are not a standing committee. INS would then make a formal recommendation regarding the need to Common Council, and Common Council would either confirm or deny that recommendation.
Okay, so I am the alder of this area, and when would it make sense to have the study from two perspectives that are conflicting? One is the study, the sooner we have it, the less we're going to see the impact of this. The later we have it is the later we have potential construction to improve the safety situation. So I guess talking out loud, when would be the time to request a study because it's coming. I mean, the development is there, it's coming. We're gonna need it. So when's the best time?
Whenever the residents in the area deem it necessary.
Okay.
I think the concern is, though, is that we're looking at sidewalks and they find that sidewalks are necessary. I think you're gonna have a lot of homeowners that aren't gonna be happy at that point.
Well, I know, it's a catch-22, but at the same time, it's a safety issue.
No, you're right, you're right.
And I'm just looking at this development, I don't see anything really wrong with the development except where it is in relationship to the neighborhood to the north and these, you know, how the road exists. I mean, we can't look at one without looking at the other. In my view, I'm an alder, so that's why I'm sitting on this commission, so. But I appreciate the steps that you have to go through.
From our perspective, we view this development no different than the development down at Challenger, which is Uncle Mike's.
Okay, well, yeah.
It really isn't any different.
Well, it's not different, except now they're both there, potentially, along with the stuff to the east. That's there. So all of a sudden, what always used to be green is now pavement and parking lot and businesses, so.
Which is consistent with the comp plan.
Right, it's consistent, and so I see a need for that road. Finger Road needs to be addressed. It just needs to be addressed. And not only from sidewalk safety, but if you're approaching the intersection from the east, you're narrow, and if you want to make a right-hand turn, you might not be able to make it if there's a backup, all that kind of stuff. So there's actually a need to potentially widen to the east. But all this costs money, which I know people love to spend, but it's safety. I mean, it's development.
There's no train.
Yeah, there's no train. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
With all that said, staff has made a recommendation for approval of the request.
All right. So, I mean, this follows the comp plan. It follows the zoning that's kind of trucking on down the road.
It does. This is the next step, and it's an actual conceptual plan that's been put forward by somebody.
So it's always a difficult time when the commercial areas reach out to the Mason as a commercial street, but it's difficult when it's been empty for a long time.
Right, and now there's no other place for building, so development is going on.
Is there an estimate of potential traffic?
As far as this goes, so they're...
With this or the CUP, either one?
Right, so we don't have anything on the west side right now. We would just go to a general commercial use. As far as their queuing for traffic, mind you, so we'll get this into more further discussion with the CUP, but if it's a drive-through, you're required by code to have 3 parking stalls in the drive lane itself, in front of the board, and then 3 more cars to be behind it. So your queue would equal 6. They're looking for 10. I spoke with the developer about this. Remember, there's a conceptual plan, so they can make some changes to it. In general, I feel like the layout does work here. They may remove that secondary line here, because if you happen to have, say, 10 cars in line, people just aren't going to wait in line for coffee, especially if you have other places you can go to as well. But as far as an actual traffic count, no, do not have that.
I think my question was more, again, for the CUP, but on the one we did previously across the street from here, I thought we had the queuing pointing in the other direction, so the headlights wouldn't point towards the residential houses.
Right.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so on this one, compared to the other plate, I'll go back over to this view. If you recall, they had a strip mall, so they were taking their access point being on the eastern part of the property and going around the mall itself, units 5, 4, 3, 2, they're using one on the side. That's where they got their traffic lights, point them back either to the east, pointing to the west or to the south. They come back around, you'd have one last one where you exit the property back to the east. On this one, so we have our counterclockwise and clockwise issues to deal with. How do you make that happen onto a property? So you have headlights here coming down, circling around, and then you have this right here, which is an issue. One of the conditions as far as the CUP recommendations is trying to address that point there for that area. You're having headlights go to the north at some point in a development like this. You just are. But we were discussing this with the development team. We did appreciate what they've done to take the majority of the cars to face it both to the south, across the street, and then back to the east. With that last one being, unfortunately, a person on the corner, that's not the best spot. We'll grant that, that's not great, but we do feel that some of the conditions will address that.
Okay.
And again, what you're making action on is a rezone from rural residential to general commercial.
Which follows the comp plan.
Which follows the comp plan.
Yes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ravinsky, second by Vice Chair Miller. Any further discussion? We'll go ahead with the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then that will move forward then to City Council for May 7th. Moving on to item number 8, which is public hearing. This public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Press Times. The Plan Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items. We invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, and whether you favor, oppose, or are just providing information. We also ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. City staff will provide a presentation during the public hearing, and questions raised by the public may be asked, but they will not be answered by staff until the upcoming actionable items. You must be recognized by the Plan Commission in order to speak, and please address your comments to the chair. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. And we will now open the public hearing on item number 8. Public hearing on the request for a conditional use permit to create a restaurant with drive-through in a C1 General Commercial District at 3000 block of Finger Road, submitted by Brett Paul of Excite Real Estate on behalf of First Security Credit Union property owner.
Madam Chair, so now we're looking at just the Ziggy's Coffee eastern portion of the property. Property itself is 110,000 square feet. We're looking at the 0.7 acres on the eastern part of the property. As Director Grenier mentioned, there is no formal CSN that's been placed forward on this property just yet. This is looking at the larger property. They have to still do the actual splits. But in their CUP, they note, each property line and a drive entrance coming in to be shared between different users here to the folks in the rezoned area off to the west. So there are challenges to to use this site. Noting you'd have to have your drive entrance coming from the westernmost part of the property, unlike the last one, it's the easternmost part of the property. And then you have a situation where, because of where your car is placed, you're going to go, in both situations, a counterclockwise situation. The drive will inherently have some issues to existing neighbors. The majority of the headlights will go face off to the south and to the east. Looking at this initial concept site plan, they meet most of the issues when it comes to designing for a facility like this. So I'm not showing it here as far as, this is the area where we have the most concern as far as issues with landscaping. Now, our landscaping code does a pretty good job when it comes to separating parking lot uses in perimeter parking and with residential. In general, they have to maintain a 15-foot setback with landscaping along the sides of Ontario, Mason, and Finger. We'll get into the specifics when it comes to recommendations once the public hearing is over, but we do recognize there should be some additional landscaping up along the northern end of the property when you're across the street from the residence. That said, this is a little bit further setback than the one we talked about back in January, and that was about 155 feet or so from the front doors. Don't have the exact specifics on this because this is more just conceptual, but we're talking a few more feet, so like 175, 180 feet from the front doors, the people who work along Finger. Getting back in the landscape code, you have to have a 15-foot wide buffer zone. In that, you need to have plantings, combination of berms, plants, wall, fence, something to make this 3-foot tall discrepancy, and you have to be 90% opaque year-round. We'll get into specifics to have a bit more into that when it comes to the recommendations on the north side. But otherwise, the code changes are made back in 2022 do a really good job of separating those uses. It's going to be applicable here and applicable in our upcoming items as well, to what helps separate that intensive use as far as a driveway and drive-through compared to a block.
Great, thank you. All right, so we're looking to hear from anyone who would like to speak on this item. Is there anyone wishing to speak?
Yes, I'd like to speak.
If you can state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure, John Crabb, 505 Larry Lane, Green Bay. Also representing McAuliffe Park Neighborhood Association. Just from, I would say, the association standpoint, just to first off to echo Alderman Hutchinson's concerns there with the sidewalk and safety. It really is there, and you know, if I could make that request right now, I would make that request to have these studies done, because when we brought forward on the other property, you know, it just kind of seems to be dismissed that you know, the concerns aren't being addressed. So just as far as like sidewalks and stuff, you know, because these, you know, this rezoning is going to happen. These businesses are coming in. We need to address the safety aspects. From a personal standpoint, regarding the CUP here, I am against just having another coffee shop. I mean, seriously, how many coffee shops do we need, especially in this area? I mean, we're talking one right across the street. We got, you know, and then you're proposing this one. You got, you know, Uncle Mike's, you got the industrial park. My concern is that we're going to have a little business there, and who knows if it makes it, you know, good chance it doesn't make it. And then what? Now we're looking at an abandoned building for, you know, sitting on a site and stuff. So I'm just kind of looking at the fact that, you know, we got so many other coffee shops and stuff that, you know, we can't think of anything else that to put out there. So from a personal standpoint, I am against that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
3716.
You can come to the podium and state your name and address, please.
Yeah, 3716 Schrader Drive, Manitowoc. I actually will be the one that's operating in there. We've done our homework with that, with the traffic counts, the competition location, and we actually believe it's a very, very good site. And actually, we were not we not searched out. A real estate agent across the way actually called because they wanted a coffee shop there, and they were initially going to look to put a Starbucks there. And that's kind of when the other thing was like, okay, do you really want another Starbucks in town, or do you want somebody a little more local? That's how this also came up. So it's not like we purposely set out looking to put there. We were contacted about putting it there. So if anybody's kind of wondering on that. And as far as also the traffic coming around with the drive-through, on that top right-hand corner where I guess your stop sign would probably be at, if we're gonna have landscaping over there, I'm sure we can put some kind of a mound set up, maybe some trees or bushes in there to help block the headlights heading to the north, right? So that would help kind of diminish some of that. You guys have any other questions?
Could you state your name for the record, please?
Brandon Bowe.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 9. Consideration with possible action on the request for a conditional use permit to create a restaurant with drive-through in a C1 General Commercial District at 3000 block of Finger Road, submitted by Brett Paul of Excite Real Estate on behalf of First Security Credit Union property owner.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So, do get it, you're getting to a capacity here, you would think, as far as coffee shops. That's not really what I questioned, though. The CUP is for a drive-through. So in theory, somebody can come onto the western part of the property and put another coffee shop there. As long as it can have a drive-through, it'd be permitted, it wouldn't be here. And it'd be the same thing here, too. If there was no drive-through, they wouldn't be in front of this board here tonight. It'd simply be the rezone request, and there'd be a restaurant at that point. What is good about this plan is, even though the building is quite small, if you note then to the western part of the property, you do have that larger patio area, to which the development team mentioned they want to use it as part of their overall scheme and make that as a part of their operations. Additionally, if in the future, if the coffee shop were to fail, and I think it is appropriate to say that all these coffee shops come into play, places, the market won't hold all of them at some point. But we want to see those restaurants be reused. We want to see those uses turn into a different type of drive-through. And with both the space that's out there right now for patio and the ability to eventually expand to the west, felt this is a good use for the site itself. So with that, we do recommend approval based off the following conditions. A few of this is boilerplate, a few of this is based off of the property itself. So one is a site plan and applications are submitted. So we haven't received an actual formal site plan yet, that needs to go through. The property has to be divided, and the drive-through is only applicable to the eastern part of the property. Not noting an actual acreage because they could ebb and flow a little bit as far as where the property line goes to. As noted before, a variance has to happen with this. So if this were to be approved, and then approved by Common Council next week, they still have to go and ask for a variance in the property to prove that there's a hardship to put in that placement of the ordering boards in the front of the property. Fourth, this comes to the landscaping part of it. The code does a pretty good job, but you have your issues on the north side of the property. With that, we're suggesting that along the northern boundary between the driveway lane and the property, there must be a minimum of a 4-foot high buffer and 100% opaque. Their call is how they want to do it. I'm not suggesting that say it has to be a berm or landscaping, a wall or a fence. Do one of those or a combination thereof to get to 4 feet in height. Fifth is compliance with all the regulations. And finally, an additional one that wasn't part of your package. We had some back and forth last time as to those hours. When talking with the applicant, we went back and forth too as far as what they want. 5:30 to 9:30 was suggested. That's what was approved before with that coffee shop across the street. They too feel content with those hours. So suggesting that as a board, you'd add that condition as well, 5:30 to 9:30 for drive-through purposes, that it would be only operating between those hours. Now the restaurant itself, the restaurant can do what it wants, but the drive-throughs be limited 2 hours to be cognitive of the neighbors across the street.
I feel like we had put that into the code or something, or we had asked, or we had thought about it. There was a lot of discussion around it, I remember that much. Okay.
So for the landscaping, we've actually gone up in height and to 100% opaque compared to 90%. So
Right.
above and beyond.
Yeah, above and beyond, yes. 3 foot at 90 is your normal, and that was what's required along Mason and along Ontario. But the finger portion would be a different story here. Since you'd have headlights either from the drive-through or from people who are parking their vehicles facing
Oh,
to
into
the
that
north.
one, the last, right, okay.
Hi, and I just want to add something here. So with the zone change, you could not require a sidewalk. You could require a sidewalk as part of a conditional use permit, but it has to be related to the requested conditional use. So you can't just say, I want a sidewalk running all the way down Finger, because it's not related to this specific use. You could require along this frontage, a sidewalk be put in.
That would make any sense if there's no other sidewalk for it.
There is a sidewalk now.
There's on Ontario.
On Ontario.
There is.
Yeah.
You're saying the rest of the way.
The rest of the way would just be like the sidewalk here, but
Well, I think
I
that's
just
roads
wanted,
are coming
I
in.
just
right?
want to
That's a
point that out
possible
because
option.
it's different from the rezoning. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously you want to do a sidewalk study, that's, we have engineers. that
I believe it's
know
been
what we're doing.
requested, so.
Right, I just wanted to point that out.
With the north side boundary, I mean, I understand the landscaping and everything, but what about signage in terms of in here and out there. I mean, we don't want to go through all that work and then somebody put a glaring sign that says enter. to get to the property.
There's designs.
Yeah, so we have in chapter 30 of our sign code, directional signage is an allowed use. It can be down in that area near the property line itself. We do have a triangle setback that it cannot be blocking the view as far as folks who are going in and out of the property when they're trying to look left and right. That would be for this property being a driveway, a X and Y, X off of Finger Road and coming back as a Y back up to, or down south towards the property at 15 feet. So it wouldn't be that much. Keep in mind, I believe directional signage, the maximum square footage is 6 feet, 6 square feet. So it's not meant to be a large sign for directional signage. They can have their larger signs when it comes to the wall sign or any freestanding signage on the property itself, because if it gets changed over to a C1 zoning code, you follow the standards that come into play with C1. There are a few caveats if you are directly across the street from residential that they'd have to keep in mind, that not every part of the signage could work on Finger, but Ontario and Mason is different.
That was the other question too, just past the berm, you don't want to have a huge sign glaring at the neighbor then too, if you go through all the work of,
Right.
on that side of the building facing that, but the code prevents that from happening.
The code allows for signage to potentially occur on all 3 sides of the property, but there are some caveats that come into play as far as intensity when you are across the street from a residential neighborhood. I don't know the top of head, but there are some provisions in there, yes.
But just in case, we could put in a condition that there be no signage on the building facing.
You can, yes, yeah.
Question on the sidewalk. Right now, I mean, it would make sense to have sidewalk access extended from the existing sidewalk into the site. Is that what you're talking about?
No, code would require that now on site. I'm saying if, so let's say as part of the conditional use, as part of this use they're requesting, you felt a sidewalk along Finger Road would be necessary right now. So let's say it was a school or something, with a drop off in the street. At that point, you could say, hey, I want the sidewalk to go in as part of the CUP.
So we could.
Because it would be related to the direct use of the property.
So because this is, have some foot traffic with it, we could require sidewalk on the north side of this plot, this property.
We could have it, just like we say here, that the property must be divided and the drive-through use is only applicable to the easternmost parcel. You could say a sidewalk has to be included on the northern part of the property in the said easternmost parcel. So if you want a sidewalk in the right-of-way in that area, it could be noted that way.
However, it will be a sidewalk to nowhere.
Well, for now, it's a sidewalk to nowhere, but the
And
hope
there is
is,
currently a sidewalk on Ontario, which they'll have to connect to.
well, and we're
So
assuming,
again, it has to be relevant to the use, not just because you want a sidewalk.
Well, I want both.
I know.
right. Well, and there's gonna be more development down that block, and then do we require, I mean, especially if this is going to be what they're looking as a walk-up location,
Yeah.
I would think you would want to make it,
Typically, if you're looking longer than just this site itself, if it's relevant to more than just this site, you're gonna wanna go through the other channels that Director Grenier had mentioned.
Yeah, but is that fair to the business to say, we want you to put a sidewalk there now, or have a sidewalk there now, that, because 5 years from now, or 2 years from now, we might have more businesses?
or they can put it in after the fact. It's easier to put it in.
Well, it's already in there. So it's not, they could go and get a variance to have a sidewalk hardship if they wanted.
Yeah, but it's a sidewalk to what?
Exactly.
Well, it would connect to Ontario for now. But, yeah, no,
It seems like,
I could go anyway.
it's like
I want
a conditional.
I want sidewalks everywhere.
I love sidewalks.
I live downtown, I want sidewalks.
I love sidewalks too, but it doesn't seem like it's a condition that we would just put in for what? To go where?
Well,
Right.
I think I'm gonna make a motion to approve with all of those conditions, including the additional condition, and also the condition that a sidewalk be constructed on the north property line of that development. We're gonna potentially make property owners do it on the north, so I think it's fair to make business owners do it on the south.
Second.
I'm sorry.
Fine.
I know you mentioned
3,000.
connecting business to the existing sidewalk, was that?
Right.
Ontario, which they don't, in the site plan, they didn't call it out.
It did not call out, but the official one would have to.
Sure.
That would be a requirement.
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
there's nothing, we just looked, there's nothing, Uncle Mike's is right here. Uncle Mike's is, so we would be putting a conditional use on, we would put something on the businesses.
I feel like we're
And I'd
stepping
like
a
to-
little out of
Over-
our.
I think so too, I think it's a
We're-
little bit of a overreach, and I'm not.
You know what
in
the
favor of
Alder
that.
has requested is sidewalk study, and I think that that is probably the best step to go that way.
So he's got a motion and a second. We should resolve
Oh,
that
okay.
on that.
And I move for amendment to the motion to include a restriction on signage facing the north tied to the building.
Hold on.
Who had the first?
Alder.
I think
Okay.
you first have to work on Jim's,
Yes.
Yeah,
unless he's willing to accept Michael's
The amendment.
amendment.
I'm willing to accept Michael's.
Okay. And that was the motion and the second, both of you, so you could still.
and that was with adding the sidewalk on the north side and
No signage facing.
no signage facing the
finger.
north.
Would you want to elaborate on that as far as
Yeah.
wall freestanding directional?
Illuminated signage.
Oh,
So they could have a non-illuminated sign, but not a illuminated sign. So it doesn't defeat the purpose of this whole berm, and then suddenly put a huge sign above it.
What about illuminated to the south? Can it be illuminated to the south?
yeah, we're just not trying to.
So-
Just the
Okay.
north, just facing the
Just
property.
facing north,
Yeah,
on the north side.
correct, because you're building this berm, and suddenly they put a huge sign up, and then you're shining into the neighbors anyway, so then you might as well not have the berm.
Okay, makes sense to me.
I accepted it, so it
If you want-
shouldn't.
if you want any staff comment, I will gladly speak.
If you don't want it,
It's
I will speak.
Oh, your motion?
Right, okay. All right, so we've got a motion with the addition, right.
Did you have what you need on the sign?
So for the signage, no illumination
On the
on the
north.
signage facing north.
Facing north. So a sign can exist, it can't be illuminated, it can't face north.
Correct.
No illuminated signs, okay. All right. Do we have any further discussion? I know, I really am having a hard time.
I'm okay on the signage, I can't sign off on the sidewalk. though,
That's how I feel.
Personally.
I guess we'll go with.
We can take the vote on
Yeah.
it, but just to let you know.
okay.
My thought on that is they're talking about increasing foot traffic and making it an amenity for the neighborhood. So I would be in favor of the sidewalk. It's.
That's something we've never done that before in this type of scenario.
We haven't, and I feel like we probably should have.
But it's a
Maybe.
sidewalk to nowhere, and we're
For now.
putting.
For now, it's a sidewalk.
For now, but we're putting conditions on business that we have not put on anything else.
We didn't
We'll be
condition-
consistent.
Well, consistency would not be doing the sidewalk because we didn't make it a condition on the prior one.
Correct. We didn't do it for any of the other side, we didn't have a.
They've got no, not to give them ideas, they've got a great case for a variance request here or a lawsuit.
I think it's.
I don't, we're not being consistent by requesting sidewalks. I love sidewalks as much as I personally.
I love
I think we're,
sidewalks.
we're in trouble on this one, I think.
However, in the previous projects to the east, there was not an existing sidewalk of which they could connect to.
This is true.
So this is
true.
continuing an existing
I
sidewalk.
don't even see the sidewalk.
It's right there, it's that white
It's
line,
north-south
that's it.
Ontario.
Like that.
But it's something.
So there was no sidewalk to connect anything to the east, further.
And it
into
also
the
wasn't an
residential.
improved road.
Correct.
That was the rural
So the
ditch
sidewalk
road.
is-
So
Okay,
literally,
correct,
these people
okay.
could walk from this whole neighborhood over here and across the street and there, I mean, like Commissioner Rubinski said, like they're looking to do this as a walk-up, neighborhood centered business.
Is that part of the variance request to pull that, like if they could go back and ask for that to be removed?
Wouldn't be through the Board of Appeals if this is on the right of way.
Well.
I guess, are we the authority on it, or could they go
And
ask?
it's a condition of your CUP approval, so if they couldn't meet the condition, the CUP would be denied even if you approved it, because they can't meet the conditions you're placing on it.
What would be the process to put a sidewalk in if this died? What would be the situation to put in a sidewalk later on?
Well, just as Director Grenier had mentioned, either it would be, either a neighbor or an alder would instigate a study, or the engineering department would just notice it themselves and take it upon themselves to do that study.
And then eventually a sidewalk would have, if that all went through and they needed a sidewalk would go there. So technically, we're assisting in that process, because we all know this is a problem area. And now they don't have to redo the whole berm and landscaping and design of the project, and they can incorporate that sidewalk into the plan when we're starting a new project.
However, from an origin-destination standpoint, the origin of the foot traffic would be on the north. There is a high probability that the sidewalk study would require the sidewalk to go in on the north side of Finger Road, utilize the existing crossing of Finger at Ontario, and the mandatory connection between the Ontario sidewalk and the business that's required under site plan would provide the continuity.
Does that happen? I don't know, doesn't happen, that aids in the amendment, right?
Director Grenier, is there the possibility that the sidewalk could go on both sides?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's just the study, you're saying likely right now, the north is most likely.
No, I'm saying that when we look at it from an origin-destination standpoint, there's a possibility that it may not be ordered on the south side, it might be ordered on the north side, because that's where the population density is. Instead of requiring that population density to cross Finger Road at uncontrolled locations, from a continuity standpoint, it might make more sense to keep them on the walk down to Ontario, where there is existing sidewalk. That would be a recognized crosswalk, cross them across Finger Road at that point, and then the mandatory sidewalk under site plan to connect the Ontario walk to the building site itself would then provide that last bit of continuity to the restaurant.
Okay.
There's no guarantee that by putting the sidewalk in front of this parcel, that it would ever be extended to the west. A sidewalk is probable,
But where it goes.
but where it goes, north or south,
So we could put this condition in, and the sidewalk could be just there, not connected to anything.
it could. That is correct.
If the next business to the west came in and didn't need a CUP for some reason, we wouldn't be able to condition it either.
Right, right.
They could come in and completely ignore it.
And because of the zoning there, they don't, that's not a requirement.
Correct.
Okay, I've been going back and forth on this one. I'm ready to vote.
Oh, gosh.
So you have a motion and a second
Okay.
with all the conditions and the added
Plus
condition.
a sidewalk to the north.
Sidewalk on the north
No
property
illuminated-
line and no illuminated
sign on the
signage
north.
facing north.
All right, are we ready to vote?
Yeah.
All right. All those in favor of the motion on the floor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Ooh,
That's why I said we do a vote.
That's 3 and 3.
Votes a fail.
Okay.
So
So I
what's the
would make a
resolution?
motion to approve as recommended by staff.
I would second that.
I would maybe toss in the sign.
The light
Sorry,
sign.
correction.
Yes.
And with the addition of the sign.
And the hours. Oh, and the addition of the hours.
Keep it.
Hours and signs.
Yes,
okay.
correct. What's spelled out
Right.
in PowerPoint and
All
the addition
there.
of the illuminated signs.
Okay.
Was that seconded? Sorry.
Yes,
Okay.
second. Motion by Commissioner Vinsky, second by Commissioner Daniels. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
All right, we've got 5-1. Heading forward to City Council for May 7th. Moving on to item 10, which is a public hearing. public hearing has been posted and public notification has been published in the Press Times. The Plan Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items. We invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, and whether you favor, oppose, or are only providing information in the matter. We also ask you to provide your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. City staff will provide a presentation during the public hearing, and questions raised by the public may be asked, but they will not be answered by staff until the upcoming actionable item. You must be recognized by the Plan Commission in order to speak, and please address your comments to the chair. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and we will now open the public hearing on item number 10. Public hearing regarding a conditional use permit request to allow the use of a fuel gas service station, convenience store, and car wash facility in a community center commercial district at 1007 and 1009 West Mason Street, petitioned by Seth Waddle of Quick Trip Bay Center Inc., property owner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. All right, the property that we're looking at here is at the corner of Gross Avenue and West Mason Street. This is the old Bay Center, that 3 buildings. Your smallest one was a Subway most recently along the road itself, used to be Robbins. Yeah, your larger facility, that's Executive Office Suites, had a liquor store in it, had a antique store in it at one point, and then you had a small building set up in the southeast corner that happened to have about 4 different tenants in the building that would shuffle through the course of time. So this is what Richard is proposing on the 2.87 acre site. So it's 2 parcels, looking to combine it into 1 parcel in total. Existing zoning on the site, C3 commercial, surrounded by a mixture of uses, OR to the west, single-family low-density residential to the east and to the south, and some industrial and commercial before us off to the north, as well as the old railroad corridor that goes nearby. As far as future land use goes, it's commercial. So zoning here for a CUP, there's a conditional use that they're asking for within the realm of the C3 zoning. Let's look at another aerial view of the property as to what we're discussing before. You can see the old Subway, the larger facility that had a number of uses, executive office suites, and then had about 4 different tenants off in the corner building off of Gross Court itself. So this is what QuikTrip is proposing. Typical QuikTrip store, looking to put 10 fueling pumps with canopy along the corner itself, and then having their typical gas station convenience store use, selling a variety of produce, hot foods, typical things you see over at QuikTrip, and then also having a car wash attached to the building on the east side of the building. The car wash would enter from people going counterclockwise, and they would face their headlights to both the east and then north as it comes out of the car wash. Back over this way. Operations are looking to have the store itself open for 24 hours a day. As far as traffic and drive openings, the site is located on West Mason, Highway 54. About 22,400 to 22,700 vehicles per day along West Mason Street. At the neighbor meeting occurred back in February, see a number of the folks here tonight who were in attendance at that time. Traffic was an issue that was brought up by people. So obviously Director Grenier is here to answer any questions, but DPW did not feel that a TIA was necessary for this site. Gross Avenue is located at a central location between 12th and Oneida, the 2 intersections, or lighted intersections on Mason Street itself. And this 3-way intersection here has, as of now, some good turning to come off of Gross itself onto this area, and staff did not feel it appropriate to ask for a TA at the moment. The petitioners are looking to essentially use the existing drive entrance area back over in West Mason, and then put in a new drive entrance halfway between West Mason and Gross Court. That would be their code as far as placement of an intersection or a drive entrance for the site. There were some questions about lighting on the property itself. go to that right now. Oh, so, just to give another heads up, this is what it looks like right now. So that's your view from West Mason and Gross looking to the southeast, and that's your view from Gross Court and Gross Avenue looking to the northeast at the, you want to call it rear of the existing buildings. They're a front, but that's the back of the existing buildings. So let's go to the lighting itself. Lighting was a concern by neighbors, and we did receive a photometric plan from them. They meet the code. Essentially with lights that have proper features, at the property line, you're allowed to have up to 1 foot candle. The most they have is 0.4. So it's a well-designed plan for lighting. As far as landscaping goes on the property, let's go back to this. So right now, they are looking to have 3 entrances. When we get into conditions, one of the things you'll notice as far as traffic goes is there was some concerns brought up by DPW to try to alleviate traffic from folks going southbound on the Gross Avenue itself. Part of the packet that you received, you happen to see a flow as far as how cars can access the site or larger vehicles, and they can through these access openings on both Gross Avenue and West Mason. So with that in mind, staff is looking to essentially make that buffer on the south side expand the entire way and not have a drive opening on the south end. As far as landscaping goes, the buffer-wise, they meet the code. East side, plenty of space there, and a number of different plants being put on that side, as well as a 6-foot-tall fence along the proposed, along the eastern property line and the southern property line where it's not adjacent to the right-of-way, where it's acting as a side yard back over this way. Additionally, the initial site plan called for a 6-foot-tall fence along the south property line up until the proposed drive entrance. That can't happen. It's got to stay down at 4 feet because it's in the front yard, and within the front yard you can't have a 100% opaque fence in the front yard itself. So staff is recommending to, not as a condition, but just recommending as far as the final site plan to extend that fence off along Gross Court, but lower it down to 4 feet itself. The landscaping code will dictate what happens there, so we're not saying they have to have the fence there, but what has to happen along that south property line is back to what we had over at Ziggy's, 3 feet tall, 90% opaque, year-round basis. That's what occurs over on the west, south, and north. For the most part, we're seeing that here with what's presented with the landscaping plan. The one area that was not really addressed is this area over here. We'll deal with that here with site plan review. Don't really see it being an issue. Overall, pretty good site landscaping plan, and we can go through the process to make that work. They also propose a car wash that would be attached to the building itself. Folks who come in and enter the car wash here on the south of the property and exit back out towards that drive entrance over on West Mason Street. Staff doesn't see a problem with this. It's a typical use when it comes to a car wash. The one thing that we are seeing is to potentially add some conditions as far as hours of operation. That's not atypical. It's happened with other car washes in the area and in different pushers throughout the metro area. So staff has received comments. There are people here looking to come themselves about this. As mentioned, back in February 24, neighborhood meeting, about 40 people attended. I'd say of that, half dozen or so were pretty against this idea. Another half dozen to a dozen seem to be in favor of the idea because of the addition of different uses, grocery goods, things of that sort, which, if you recall back in the day, 2 blocks away, back over by the 715 Marquette property, used to have Jubilee and Sherway Foods. That's gone now, and something like this would be a replacement over in that area. So back in February, neighbors within 400 feet of the property, as well as the Marquette Park Neighborhood Association, were notified. They happened to show up to it. We have received some calls. I do have one letter that I will speak out loud if that person is not here tonight during the public hearing.
All right, thank you. All right, so now with this public hearing, we're looking to hear from anyone who would like to speak on this item. You can just state your name and address, come to the podium, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Come into the podium, please.
My name is John Kinnear. I'm with LaForce Company. We're the property just to the north of this proposed location. And 1060 West Mason Street, Green Bay is the address. Generally, we are not opposed to this development. We've been in this neighborhood since the 70s. We think it could be a really nice addition to the neighborhood. The one big concern we have approximately 325 full-time employees that work there at that particular location of ours, and it's pedestrian safety. And also the neighbors in the neighborhood on the north side of the street that are behind our facility and to the east, I would imagine will be attracted to cross West Mason Street to get to the convenience store to buy the groceries and the yummy cinnamon rolls and everything that Quick Trip offers. So the one other concern we have is there is a bus stop right there at Gross on the north side of the street. So that also drives potential pedestrian traffic across West Mason. And you may recall last year, someone was killed trying to cross West Mason in that area. So what we would think would be appropriate would be some sort of study to try to assess the pedestrian safety situation crossing West Mason Street with the addition of this facility. And if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
Oh, excuse me. Don Andrews, 825 Girls Court. I've lived in the neighborhood since '77. I would like to see possibly stoplights at the corner of Gross and Mason Street. That's a dangerous corner as it is, and I'm hoping they eliminate that driveway going off onto Gross Court. Gross Court just makes a square off of Gross. So every once in a while, if you got a little accident on Mason Street, you turn on Gross and people think, oh, we can get out of here this way. You get more and more traffic around there. And then the one other thing I would like to talk about is on their map that they got their drawing where they want to put their entrance. I think their entrance should be a little further west. Because right now where the entrance is, if you're coming from the east, there's only a spot about this wide that you could drive your car up onto. I don't know if you can see it. Might be a little harder on that one. I don't know if you guys want to see this one. But it's, if you move down, if you put the entrance further west, then you got an island that at least you can pull your car up to and turn the corner without.
Is that what you're talking about?
And right where the entrance is, there's only a spot about this big that you got to park or try to get across. If they moved the entrance further west, at least it's wide enough you could put a car in there and allow traffic to get by you. You know, right now you're waiting, somebody's gonna get tail-ended there. Other than that, I'm not totally opposed to Quick Trip. I use them, so, but a couple of safety factors, especially that entrance.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
I live at 724 Gross Avenue. My name is Debbie Lees, and I'm right kitty corner from the Quick Trip. I'm right there where they're gonna build it. And I heard you guys addressing the light issue with the other parking lots and the cars going around and facing this way and facing that way. They're gonna be facing right into my bedroom window as they're coming in, going out, whatever. And I want to address that. We had mentioned at the meeting that we had a couple weeks ago that we would like to see a wall built along Gross Court and just part of Gross Avenue there along that corner to block off the light, the noise, the pollution that blows around, all the paper, everything. And I think it's kind of an elegant solution Because any of the neighbors right along there, all of our bedroom windows face Gross Court, faces toward there, I face toward there, Jerry, Ian, all of us are facing toward there. So, I mean, Quick Trip can say all they want about them keeping their lights low, but this is, they're talking all night, 2 o'clock in the morning, all the drunks stumbling around, and the lights going right into our houses, this way, that way, it's gonna be all over the place, and the noise. A wall would seriously cut down on the noise factor from car doors slamming, from whatever else goes on at Quick Trip at 2 in the morning. I'm not totally opposed to this, but I think that you need to protect my property value. I've put a lot into my home, everybody here has. We've put our hearts and souls into them, and I'm looking at my property value going down the gutter, basically, because nobody wants to live across from a 3-ring circus in the middle of the night, okay? And then what they said about the coming off of Gross Avenue, it's impossible going on to Mason Street to turn left. Anytime from 6:30 in the morning on, you can forget it. So people coming out of Quick Trip and thinking they're gonna hop on the Gross Avenue and go left, you can't unless you guys put in a light. And I heard that was an issue because it's a public highway, or it's a state highway, is that correct? That they would have to go to the state and get a variance or something like that. But otherwise, all that traffic is gonna do what we presently do. We end up going down Gross Avenue. If I have to go to the north, we end up going down Gross Avenue to Hickory Hill, going over to Oneida, and then going up Oneida to get out of there, to go, you know, toward the bay. So that's what's gonna, where the traffic is gonna funnel. Otherwise, if you guys don't get a light put in there, it's gonna all funnel right down Gross Avenue. So I think it's two big issues that, to be considered here before you approve. I'm not totally against Quick Trip, but I think that you need to protect the neighborhood too. Because we are a wonderful little neighborhood. There's all kinds of people here from that neighborhood because we're all so close. And it's not like a big, you know, we're not used to all the traffic and the noise and everything. And we have kids there. And there's 2 high schools just down the street. So, and the kids will be going across, they'll be running across West Mason. So before somebody gets killed, please put in the traffic light. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Oh, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
I'll just have the one on the record before this is over. Will be received Friday afternoon. They're not at the meeting here today, so
Okay.
we'll note them. Maggie Durnall, a neighbor, had come to I recently saw your post about the zoning commission meeting on April 29th. Since I will not be able to attend the meeting, I'd like to get my comments to you so they can be considered in my absence. I do live in the neighborhood near the site in question, about 5 blocks away. I do not think a Quick Trip is the best use of the property. It would be the 3rd gas station on a street that, in a 5-block span, and there's already a Quick Trip about a mile away on Walnut. Over Johnson, you are always talking about the need for housing. This would be a good spot for that, particularly low-income housing, or a mixed-use housing / convenience store. If the store aspect of Quick Trip is a selling point, though it really shouldn't be. It's near schools, easy access to main roads, on a bus line, and close to several businesses, districts, and potential employers. Oneida Street, Military Avenue, Ashland, and downtown Green Bay. I think the neighborhood would be better served by something more people / community oriented than business oriented in that particular location. Thanks for reading, Maggie Durnall.
Do I have to say 3 times? No? Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
Sure. Good evening. My name is Troy Malazova with Quick Trip Real Estate, 1626 Oak Street, La Crosse, Wisconsin. Thanks for the time this evening. Just a couple of points. I think John did a good job on the staff report. Just kind of a couple of historical facts. This property initially was developed as an old A&P grocery store way back in the 1960s. Obviously, Quick Trip, our feeling is we're a little bit more of a modern interpretation of the old kind of corner grocery store. Obviously, providing grocery products, hot food, a place to gather. I know there was mention of coffee shops. Obviously, we sell coffee, but we've also got a place to sit in the store and talk with your neighbors, get together, if you will. So with that, we feel our opportunity here is to be of service to the neighborhood. Obviously, there's been different uses over the years in that property. We feel we can provide a lot of those historical uses to the neighborhood. With that context, kind of what the site is today, it's largely an asphalt patch with a bunch of buildings stuck on it. So it's obviously been a long time since that property was developed. The plan we're working through here with staff would have roughly 40% green space. I think the plan today sits maybe around 5 or 6%. So obviously a big chunk of improvements in terms of not only what you see in terms of facility, but also kind of greening up the property and providing more, less asphalt through the site. Also, there'd be a completely modern stormwater system. So today that property more or less sheet drains, 2 drains along the east side and the north side of the property. With that, our new modern stormwater system would have curb and gutter throughout the site, large areas for stormwater retention, again, better enhancement of stormwater in the area than compared to what you might have today from the property that sits there. I guess important to point out kind of the access point discussion. Currently today there's 2 driveways along Gross Avenue, obviously combining those down to 1 entry point in the location shown on the plan. We thought that was a good plan and a good opportunity to kind of consolidate that access and make it better for the future. And then on Gross Court, there currently is 3 openings, one that sits between 2 of the buildings as you get back to where Gross Court makes the bend and heads back south. We did have a driveway opening shown closer to or behind the existing building sets, and we intentionally put that kind of between where there's green space and the garage on the properties that are on the south side of that. So we did have some consideration there and thoughts. And then our last version of the site plans too, we added a notation to make no left turns, because we did hear that at the neighborhood that folks in that area did not want folks exiting and then heading back east through Gross Court and then heading north. So that was our thought on that area. Obviously screening, we've added fencing, we've added significant landscaping to the site. Again, we can work through the details with staff on exactly how that looks. But again, having screening, if it's a combination of berming, plantings, whatnot, I think we can do a good job. And I guess our reputation in working with Green Bay and our other facilities, being good neighbors and fitting in with the neighborhood. As far as access, I think the interpretation of traffic is always a concern in different areas. From our standpoint, operating in this part of the community, we've got other stores in other areas, so we wouldn't have a large, I guess, massive, we've got stores on other corridors where we'd have people of service that here we think this is a little bit more of a neighborhood store, and obviously we're catching folks on the West Mason corridor as well. So we're comfortable, I guess, with the traffic situation. If there's things we need to do to work collectively with our partners at the city to look at pedestrian walk and crosswalk functionality out there, we're happy to do that. Obviously, we want our stores to be multimodal as well, so we've got good opportunities for folks to access the store safely, biking, walking, and in their vehicles. So I guess with that, it'd be a multi-million-dollar investment. We think we can provide opportunity here to be of service. And then lastly, I know change isn't always the easiest, but again, our reputation of working with the city, with the staff, and working through issues, we're happy to talk about those as well. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're looking to hear from anyone else who'd like to speak on this item. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one has come forward, and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 11. Consideration with possible action on a conditional use permit request to allow the use of a fuel gas service station, convenience store, and car wash facility in a community center commercial district at 1007 and 1009 West Mason Street. Petitioned by Seth Waddle of Quick Trip Base Center, Inc., property owner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So hearing the feedback at the neighborhood meeting and correspondence here over the past 2 months, we felt as staff that we recommend approval for this CUP, that it met purviews of the 7 standards that are required for a CUP, but felt there should be some additional conditions placed in this to try to find that balance between making sure the store is operable for Quick Trip and the neighbors and what they've addressed as far as concerns on the property. The biggest thing here is in the site plan that was provided is an entrance off of Gross Court. As noted here, the initial conversations that we had with Quick Trip had 2 drive entrances, and they did narrow it down to the 1. But that said, the location of this drive entrance is still too close to an intersection. It makes sense as far as where it lands with the store itself. They need to have that location of the store in that spot because of easements. But that said, we are looking to try to limit people from having the opportunity to go back to the south necessarily. The idea is to try to get them to go towards the artery, towards 54 to go and leave the site, not go through the neighborhood and down Gross Court unless they have, or sorry, Gross Avenue, unless they happen to live down that way. So we do recommend that this drive entrance be removed here to stay in line with the spirit of having that buffer between the commercial and the residential. So I will get to the conditions themselves. So we're suggesting no driveway access along that Sussman property line. Now they know that having a 15-foot buffer along that area, and they do show on this a fence that was talked about before, where it's 6 feet over here, 6 feet this way. Back over in this area, that fence is lowered down to 4 feet because of it being in the right-of-way in the front of the block itself. Staff did not make a recommendation to say extend that all the way to the west, although we're encouraging them to. But we're not suggesting it has to be a condition to extend that fence off to the intersection. This is where that code and the changes back in 2022 by the council really, it's doing its job. It's creating that buffer by having the 3-foot tall combination of fencing, berming, landscaping, and trees, and keeping the opaque levels. And unlike what we happen to have seen before over on Finger, it's not as though the traffic lights are going directly into the houses this way, in a way that the drive-through would, where it's truly just focused for minutes at a time onto neighboring properties. So if Quick Trip wants to bring forth plans that would go up to 4 feet, 9% opaque, we'd take it, but staff didn't feel it was necessary to force the hand on that. We thought the idea would be to eliminate this drive entrance would be the best way to go forth from that. Additionally, as far as recommendations, there's a the car wash itself, limiting those to 7 to 9 as brought before. This is 2 parcels. They did combine those 2 parcels into one single parcel. And finally, there's a note that would come through with the site plan itself, but you're going to see this little gap. That's where the northern drive entrances right now. They got to fill it in. They can't stay that way. And the landscaping has to go in that as well. So we're just noting that as far as the recommendations. I'll note as far as just some anecdotal evidence, I've gone down to this area a lot since this happened in February. And every time I come to this intersection, I've counted how long does it take to turn left. The least amount of time for me has been 7 seconds. The most is about 50 seconds. And those 50 seconds feel forever because you want to go right now. But I also have looked at that in other places, like on Webster, and it's pretty common trying to turn left into a busy street like that. You may have to wait for a while to turn left. So, as noted, DPW does not recommend a TIA in this, and so we feel comfortable providing these recommendations to you as a commission.
Chair?
Do we have any questions for staff?
I don't.
Oh.
Motion to open the floor?
Or you don't know?
We don't have to.
We don't have to.
There was fighting
Is it
for that, but we're good now? Okay, all right, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Brian Johnson, Alderman for this area. This is actually the last property within my district. Right across the street is Alder Weary, so he may have some comments as well. So overall, I like a number of the conditions on here. I do highly encourage the Plan Commission to add the condition about removal of the entrance onto Gross Court. I don't really see a discernible need for that, other than, normally you like to disperse traffic, obviously, but recognizing that it's not a high-impact, high-value type of ingress egress onto the property. I do think that is something that can be a nice concession, to kind of help protect some of that neighborhood integrity. One of the things I would like to see, and I appreciate staff, acknowledging that they don't want to necessarily condition, but merely make a recommendation for that fence to go across. I do think we need to take a closer look at that. In particular, I personally like the idea of berming along that area, especially once you remove that driveway. I think it can create a good circumstance for that. But I do think that we need to have something that extends beyond what the current site plan is calling for. I would like to get, John, we had talked to someone, forgive me, his name escapes me, but a neighbor on the other side of the retention pond there that had talked about some kind of connection with their underground stormwater. Do you remember that?
I do.
Okay, is that something, and not something you probably need in the condition, but I just don't want to lose sight of that, so that if there is a way to solve that unique challenge that he had there, I'd like to be able to do that. I like, obviously, the addition of the green space. I think they've been very sensitive to that, and this is a much better plan than what currently exists there today, so that's very encouraging. I guess I would like to explore a little bit further. If someone from here, is Steve still here, Director Grenier? Oh, in the corner? Right.
Sorry.
There you are. I would just like to get, I guess, a little bit of expert analysis on the non-recommendation of a TIA. I think we can, based on the other items that were here, correct me if I'm wrong, Director Grenier, we can address the pedestrian crossing discussion through a separate communication.
Correct, but I would have to go back and review my notes. I believe that there is RRFB planned for 16.
For what?
16th.
Okay.
At West Mason, which would be on the east end of this property.
For those that don't know that acronym, can you explain that?
A rectangular rapid flashing beacon. If you're familiar with the hospital corridor in front of Bellin, it's a pedestrian actuated crossing signal.
Right.
Yeah, and that's expected this fall?
During the course of this summer, yes.
Yeah, of course of the summer, okay. So, and again, Director Green, if we could just kind of share a little bit about the, again, the TIA, but, wondering also, I'm not sure if there are times of the day perhaps that are higher traffic volumes. Would it be possible to even entertain something like a no left turn during certain hours?
There are always, we refer to those as peak hours.
Mm-hmm.
And typically, we experience peak hour both in the AM and the PM. The reason that staff has been recommending no traffic impact analysis, traffic impact analyses have two core functions. The first of which is to analyze the roadway network to determine whether or not geometric improvements are necessary. At this point, there are none. There are already left turn pockets on West Mason Street and adequate sight distance for Gross Avenue as it approaches West Mason. So there's nothing geometrically that we could do to really improve the situation out there. Second function would be whether or not signal control or enhanced control on stop condition would be warranted. Given the increase in traffic versus the base condition, we do not expect the increase in traffic to push the condition to a signal warrant analysis, meaning it wouldn't meet the 9 conditions under which signals are required.
Okay, and I know it's not black and white, but I presume one of those conditions is probably traffic volume. And I'm just curious how our current traffic volume compares to kind of where you get into a tipping point of when you might...
Well, again, as John indicated, we're talking about a facility where the primary street carries in excess of 22,000 vehicles a day. You're not going to approach any type of threshold on the side street, even if you remove the traffic, if you remove the driveway onto West Mason Street itself and simply required all traffic to exit onto Gross and then come north, you still may not hit that threshold. So having a split there, you're simply not going to hit the thresholds. We are very familiar with how Quick Trips operate. There are a number of them around the city. So it's not relying on Institute of Traffic Engineers trip generation estimates. We have actual anecdotal information for how Quick Trips operate in the Green Bay market. Again, I think the individual from Quick Trip may have alluded to it. What he was getting at as far as this being a quote-unquote neighborhood store, this isn't the first Quick Trip in Green Bay. So, case in point, when Popeyes went in on West Mason at Taylor, we had requirements there for traffic storage and all kinds of things that had to happen because it became a destination upon its opening. When the Popeyes went in on Main Street on the east side, wasn't required because people had gotten that out of their system and now was another fast food restaurant in the city. Quick Trip is not a unique phenomenon in the Green Bay market. We have many of them here. We know how they operate. We know what to expect from a store of this size, and we don't expect that to create the conditions. John indicated that based on his travels, the minimum delay time he had seen on Gross trying to make a left onto Mason was 7 seconds. The maximum was approximately 50. Our typical traffic signal actuation cycles run anywhere from 45 to 90 seconds. You're right within that window, even if it was signalized. It's the same amount of delay you're going to have with a signal there versus non-signal.
Okay.
Signals are about $240,000 for an intersection.
Right. And so then, just because I know residents can't necessarily ask questions, so I'm going to ask one. The location of the exit out onto Mason, one of our residents here had raised the question of what if you move that a little bit to the west. Do you have any commentary on that?
Yeah.
Not really. I think what he was getting at, could you go back to the one that you, sure, what you had?
Yep.
What the resident was talking about, acronym that we use in the industry is a twiddle. It's two-way turn left. And what he's indicating is you've got this pseudo-refuge area here in the middle, and by moving the driveway to the west, you would then be able to stage in that, the twiddle is already substandard.
Right, it's not wide enough for a
It's-
car.
Well, maybe. But that's not, there are left turn arrows painted in it, I can tell you, but generally speaking, to have a legitimate turn left position there, that should be between 14 and 16 feet wide.
Okay.
And somebody had asked about traffic signals, whether we'd have to go to the state. This is what's referred to as connecting highway. So connecting highway, the city of Green Bay owns and operates the right-of-way. There's a state trunk highway on top of it that's operated with, in cooperation with the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, but we do not need to get their concurrence for any improvements.
Okay, great. Thank you. Again, I just thought it was helpful for everyone to kind of hear sort of how that decision was made, but obviously my other commentary stands on the conditions, so,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you, Alder Johnson.
Can you put the, John, do you mind putting the hard back up? Which one? Any of them, really, showing the front. Yeah, awesome. Alderman Weary, I like following Alderman Johnson because he's very thorough and very eloquent, so I always like doing that. I concur with everything that he said. I like pointing at things. I don't have a laser pointer, so. Yeah, close off the gross court here. I think that seems a no doubter. And then I do like the idea of extending some kind of fencing or berm along here. I put it on my phone, but if anybody's familiar with Tilkins and where Walgreens is, and I know I mentioned this to you, John, on their backside, they have a little bit of a berm and a fence all the way down along Tilkins, and it's actually really beautiful. They have bushes and trees and flowers along there, and you wouldn't even know Walgreens there for the most part. But yeah, I do have the concerns with the pedestrian as well, and we can talk about that, what kind of pedestrian crossings we want. Close the entrance, get some kind of, barrier along there too, because you still will have headlights and noise. Anything you can do to help stop that from encroaching on the neighborhood. And otherwise, most people who've contacted me are in favor of the project. I'd say like 90%. Not everybody, obviously, but most people. Thanks.
Thank you. At this time, the floor is not open.
Oh, they have to open.
The reason why these are alders of the city.
Motion to open the floor. Someone wanted to speak.
And the action item.
Are we on the action?
Yes. Oh, we are?
Yes.
Okay, second.
I've got a motion by Commissioner Craddock, second by Alder Hutchinson to open the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Debbie Lees at 724 Gross Avenue. Can you go back a little bit on to the picture of the layout? There you go. Any of them will do. I just wanted to say thank you, Mr. Weary, because that's exactly what I wanted to point out. You guys were talking about running this fence just up to here, and I would greatly appreciate it because I live right here, which means everything's going to be heading my way. If you could have them run that just up to here, just run it around the corner, and you're protecting everybody on Gross Avenue, everybody on Gross Court. Across the street is a foundation building, big parking lot, nobody's there at night, wouldn't matter. But any kind of light, noise, anything, that would really, a berm and a fence would really go a long way to keeping my property values from falling down. So, and thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Motion to close the floor. Second.
Motion by Alder Hutchinson, second by Commissioner Pratt to close the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Question for staff. There's been use of the term wall and there's been use of the term fence. So are we looking at a fence at this point or?
The code itself is, when it comes to making this separation, is a combination of wall, fence, berming, landscaping. So Quick Trip has proposed the idea of the fencing, presumably opaque, 100% opaque, that would go along the southern property line through where they wanted to have their drive entrance. And from what I'm understanding from folks, let's see it come up in this way as well. So
it could be any of those things?
It could be any of those things, yes. Within the code, I mean, you recall you wanted to change to be specific, but that's
a barrier.
So, yeah, I guess speaking of case examples, the Quick Trip on University Avenue that went in recently has a very similar situation with residential butted up right behind it. There is no entrance that goes out onto that residential road, and they do have a wall. They also include pedestrian access in there. So basically where that driveway would be, it would just be pedestrian access.
A walkway.
Personally, I think I'd like to see that added in with that as well, just to connect to that neighborhood. But I definitely agree with extending the fencing along that entire southern border and wrapping it around that edge. Now, that is that considered a front, and that would have to step down to a 4-foot?
Right, it's a front,
Or
it's lower.
it wouldn't be it.
Yeah, that's why you have the 3-foot typically when it comes to, and why the 4 back over on the other property, it's still, like we talked about Ziggy's, that's adjacent, or that's much further into the property itself with that, so in general, you don't want to have that 100% opaque to where you're blocking out the view of a front yard. You're trying to avoid that, so if you have 6 foot tall and you're talking about the rear yard or a side yard, different story, but for the front, you want to keep it open in some shape or form. That's where the 4-foot comes into play.
So, but keeping it along the southern edge would be all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that the back?
So it is, it's their back, but it acts as a front. It's double fronted, it's triple fronted, because you have access on both West Mason, Gross Avenue, and Gross Court. So, I mean, in theory, you could have businesses that would front Gross Court on this area. If you split the property up, you could do that. But in this case, it acts as kind of a side yard or a rear yard for Quick Trip.
Would access have anything to do with that, since you're cutting off access from the south? Correct. Would that potentially make that more of a back? I'm just talking out loud.
I understand where you're going with that. It's for people, it's a de facto back. Just like right now, this is the de facto back of those existing properties. But it shouldn't be. It should be a front because it is in the front of a right-of-way. So this acts as like a corner side yard is what it kind of does.
Okay, so the fact that there's roads around it drive the fact that it's front.
That would be
nice. Lower down. Yep.
Thank you.
You can put up landscaping, trees and things of that sort that would be taller. That's fine, but I don't know if a property would necessarily want to have that because you want to have some visibility as well when you're going northbound and Gross to see that Quick Trip is there, so.
Thank you.
It sounds like, it sounds like most of the concerns in the community would be met by this barrier on the south side and with removing the entrance onto Gross. I mean, I'm not hearing anyone else's. Court, excuse me. So I would make a motion to approve with revising the recommendations to eliminate the driveway, correct?
Number 2.
Well, that's on 2 already.
Yep.
So we've already accomplished that. So yeah, no, that's fine. Motion to approve. With, that's in there.
Yeah.
Is it in there? The wall is?
No,
No,
there's
it's
no.
not, it's not included, so right now in their plans, they show for a 6-foot tall fence that would go along this area. That can't be, it has to go down, it has to be at 4 feet.
At 4 feet.
Okay, because it's along the right of way. So they've stopped it right here. So from what I'm hearing from folks, I think there's a consensus to want to have it at least this corner and maybe up to the drive entrance as well.
So my motion would be to approve with the adjustment that the barrier continue on up to the corner. Is that clear enough?
Yeah. So keep this in mind, that barrier has to be in place in some way that's 3 feet tall, no matter what. It's a combination of wall, fence, landscaping, or berming.
Yeah.
So that is there, that's why we didn't edit. The additional
it's
part, if you want it,
redundant.
that can be redundant. If you want to 4 feet, you have to say it right now. Because right now the code says 3 feet. If you want to say go to 4 feet, state your case.
I would, to be clear, I withdraw my motion. Right now, it's written as what, 3 feet?
3 feet, 90% opaque. For anything that when you're talking a parking lot barrier alongside of a public right of way. 3 feet and 90% opaque for as well as some conditions with, there has to be a certain amount of shrubs and trees for every 50 linear feet, which I'm not familiar with, but it's just in general, we can check that with our site plans. Thank you, 135 shrubs. Every 50 feet.
So is it 3 feet total, is that the berm and a fence, or is it, could they put a?
From the ground level,
Okay.
So it could be 4 foot, well, it would be 4 foot berm.
John, so the Quick Trip on University.
Yeah.
You're saying, so that one has, it's showing a 6-foot fence along that right of way.
along the right of way itself.
Along the right of way. I can show you here.
That was likely approved as a planned unit development.
That was-
How tall is that?
Could that
How tall is that?
Point of order.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, I mean, that,
Probably about 5 feet.
I will show it to the audience.
right. no.
But I'm guessing it was part of the planned unit development.
I mean, that whole area was
So,
such.
my question is, could that be a condition to have the 6 foot
With a variance by the Board of Appeals.
with the variance by the?
Yeah, you can't vary the code
Okay,
yourselves.
okay. So all we could do is the 4 foot.
Yeah, there's room in there because of when it comes to perimeter landscaping to call for 4 feet in there, yeah.
Okay.
But you just said we could put in with the recommendation for 6 foot if it's approved.
If it's approved by Board of Appeals,
So we would have to say that now, though. I mean, Board
I
of
don't know if we
Appeals-
can, is that what you're saying?
Upon the approval of Board of Appeals.
no, we can't because it's not where the code is.
We can't require someone to go for a variance.
Yeah.
Like, we can't create the hardship.
Exactly.
Then they really.
We can't.
So what's the height, we can go with 4 feet.
4 feet,
Perimeter
100%.
4 feet, so.
So 4
4
foot
foot makes
So you're
sense,
saying-
too.
Yes.
If you're talking about headlights, you're covering that at 4 feet.
at 100% opaque.
And I think
Because they have
it's
90.
90% opaque.
So we'd have to say 100, but that's the recommendation. So it'd have to be, we can go 4 feet, 100% opaque, whether that be berm or wall.
Combination.
On the south side,
Sure.
on Gross Court.
They're either gonna put a fence in that's that tall, or they're gonna put a berm and then plants on top of it. Those are pretty much their 2 options.
I like the wall because then it,
Just can't dictate what they put in.
Can we with
A
the
berm is pretty
6 feet?
solid though, too.
You can say which individual,
Yeah,
you want to
4
call a
foot
fence or a
solid
wall. Yeah.
I would maybe not wanna do that, just
Yeah,
for
what about
talking
for
sound, especially with that car wash right there, you're creating a lot of solid surfaces that sound's
That's a good
bouncing
point.
off of.
That's a
I'd
good
rather have
point.
something
Plus-
soft to soak it up.
Plus, if people are walking from the neighborhood, you can walk over a berm, it's harder to walk through.
You shouldn't be walking over them.
They shouldn't do that.
Well, I get, well, the lands, because there's not a lot of landscaping there either with the wall. And I think we want it to look nice.
And you can write on the wall versus a berm.
But then we'd have to say berm or wall.
Yeah, we just say 4 feet, and they can,
Let's keep it like the code says, which is
Yeah.
buffer, which gives them the option. to
They
get
get
fence
options,
or
right.
that.
You don't over legislate.
But 4 seems appropriate considering.
4 feet. And then they can choose what they want. They can choose their fence or wall or berm.
It's still 90% opaque even if it is vegetative or whatever.
And you can raise that, so the part of the code I'm referencing here, there's both your parking lot perimeter and just your in general perimeter of a property when it's adjacent to residential. Now, this is not, but it's the zoning, if you took it to both sides, to the middle of the street, that's, we have residential on the other side. So that's where I'm interpreting this to allow for 4 feet. And it has 100% opaque when it comes to that. So you could raise that level to 100% opaque on it as well, rather than 90%, which would be a solid wall or fence.
right.
Yeah, it's your call on that.
I make the motion to approve with the adjustment to the recommendations that a 100% 4-foot barrier exists along the south line and approaching up to the entrance on Gross Avenue.
So around the corner.
Around the corner on Gross Avenue. To the
Gross Avenue, not
Gross
But we can't do that on by the entry, can we? For the height?
So for the entry itself, they have to maintain some of what we talked about with the signage.
Right.
There has to be the 15-foot triangle taper, or not, sorry, triangle when it comes to your x-axis and y-axis. X being the curb itself, y being the driveway. They're inside of that triangle, you can't have any sort of buffer happening there. And that does play a role. And with the same thing down in that part of that intersection too, that's 25 feet down by Gross at the corner.
And what I obviously meant to say is as far as it approaches per code up
And
the
yes,
avenue.
and you could say wrap around to the driveway, we wouldn't be able to allow them to go that close anyway, no matter what you said.
Yeah.
So, that would work just as you said it.
As I said it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And that was a
Okay,
motion.
so
That was a
what-
motion.
Can
With
we
a
repeat
second.
that motion, please?
It's just changing it from 3 to 4
3 to 4 and 100%?
100%.
and required.
100% opaque.
100% opaque.
4 foot, 100% opaque are the changes to the already conditions. Okay.
On the southern property line up and approaching the southern
It's close to
drive of Gross.
As allowed by code.
So we're requiring it to go around the corner?
to the.
To the, yeah, as allowed by
As
code.
allowed by code, right?
That's a motion and a second.
Okay, all right, so there's a motion by Commissioner Friday, second by Commissioner Vinsky. Any further discussion?
Are we just getting on the other conditions? I know we spent about time on that.
We're happy with other things.
Just to make sure.
Yeah, I'm all good with that.
Okay.
The hours of operation are consistent.
Yeah,
For the car wash.
yeah, for the car, and then
Yeah.
24 hours for quick trips.
The 100% opaque barrier will cut down the lighting, so that was other concerns.
Okay, all right.
Chair, just to clarify,
Yes,
I'm looking for the driveway along Gross Court that's removed.
The number two, southern property line is Gross Court.
Oh, okay, sorry, didn't see that, thank you.
That's okay. Okay. All right, so with the conditions as written, plus the 4 foot, 100% opaque barrier approaching the corner as allowed by code.
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then that will move forward into City Council for May 7th. All right, moving on to informational, director's reports.
All right, I will provide my regular development update of the regularly scheduled meeting. Tonight, I would like to yield my time to municipal planner Dave Buck to
We get to go to lunch?
provide
Really? You guys send me
information on our comp plan.
I will be super fast, but I want to let you know, last Wednesday, we had our visioning workshop. At Bridgetown Brewing, we had around 60, a little over 60 people that attended. So we had 6 or 7 tables filled with people. They looked at maps, they drew, they reported back out. I think it was And then I think people were nervous at the beginning, end of the night, people were real happy to share. The couple big takeaways that I saw from the presentations was mobility and interconnectivity between transportation was by far the, and others were there, so was far the largest thing that was discussed. And also, I've been exposing also came up quite a bit, a variety of types of affordability. So I just wanted to state that, I won't say much more about it. It was a really fun event. You'll find some stuff online, we'll get pictures. Go Big Green Bay, check it out, pictures on there. Also, we just got an update on our surveys, our online surveys. We're over 3,100 so far. And it's only been out there for a short time. We have about a half of our do-it-yourself kits that have come back. So we're getting a lot of feedback. I just wanted to share that with you.
Congratulations.
That was good proof there, too.
You're gonna be on the news tonight.
Oh, yeah, 4:30 tomorrow, Channel 2. I'll be on the news.
How fun.
So there you go. That was good.
Excellent.
I do have a question for staff.
Can we stay on mute?
We're good.
Yeah. Yep, go ahead.
Thursday night's meetings, after reading through what was put together today in the report, I have some concerns. Obviously, you guys have gone through quite a bit with this already. I feel like we're being put into a bit of a, like better word, a pissing match between a couple different entities here, and I'm pretty concerned about the political nature of what should be a pretty straightforward plan commission. I like being involved in this, but this has been kind of creeping in a bit more recently. These crosstalk, people getting off topic, people on this board, I'm guilty of it too. We gotta stick to the facts, and we gotta stay committed to that, and I am very concerned about Thursday night and what we're gonna hear and what we're gonna get dragged into when we're supposed to be making pretty technical decisions like we did tonight, not get caught up in neighborhood associations, picking fights with the others. So it's something that makes me reconsider when I sign up for this to get involved in that type of thing. So that's my concern, is I want to keep doing this, and these are the type of things I don't want to do.
And I can help a little bit with that. So we will have Attorney Mather will be in the room to kind of let you know what you can do. I have been meeting to call Lisa to talk about the ability to open the floor for only petitioners. You can do that.
Oh,
You don't have to open
I
it for
like
everybody
that.
else. You do have to take the public hearing, of course.
Right.
Definitely, this time we will have staff timings, public meetings, so.
Yeah,
you don't
because
have to.
I'm not gonna lie, I like my loud buzzer, because everybody knew.
Well, it's displayed on the screen for this,
Right.
right? So they can also see their countdown, right?
Ooh.
Don't they
I
do
like
that for council?
No, they really don't.
They don't? No.
I don't know.
But we could get a
So
shot.
I like
right?
that.
Yeah, we get a clock.
I have a time.
And also, we will have an officer there, just in case.
Sure.
Really?
I don't know, it's pretty juicy if you want to read.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Right? But in reality, if you read the report already, when you've done these before, getting caught in politics is not really what you're here for. And to
The
your
facts.
point, just before, I had kind of let one of Alderman before say, you just can't speak whenever you want. I was corrected by the attorney's office saying you can.
oh, the elders can't speak at any time.
Well,
Okay.
within reason, I think we still have to like.
You can still point of order.
Well, we're still in charge of it. I
And they do
mean,
need to be directing it to the plan commission, not to anybody else.
right.
So kind of that being said, we've had on our internal agenda, plan commission training. I know some of you have gone through it before, but we were going to do an update, but it's just been a little bit crazy. So we do plan to do that again. But I think the big takeaway is Attorney Mather be here, and if things start going in an area that's outside of your realm, she'll bring it back up.
Okay.
That eases my concern, so I appreciate putting that work into.
And we do
Well,
try
and
to
we're
keep
doing,
politics out of it.
we'll put time limits on people. I mean, for the public hearing, and maybe we just don't open the floor during the actionable item, except for petitioners. I like that.
You can open it just for petitions, if you choose. Or you don't have to open it at all. It is a common practice for the plan commission to open it up, because we're just communicative, and we've always
Right,
been that way.
right. But in
there
a
are-
situation like this, we'll let people talk their piece during the public hearing, take all that input and then we'll write all, I mean, everyone always takes, I mean, we always address everything that people bring up in the public hearing. We're good about that.
And there are instances where the conversation becomes circular after a while.
Correct.
Where the same people ask to speak again
Mhm.
and
Right.
again.
So
and
we have to be
again.
cognizant of that and make sure we're calling points of order and.
Yeah. And I will call you tomorrow.
All right, excellent.
Do you guys don't have snacks? Like
I don't
we have
have
the
it.
Quick Trip donuts or something?
I can check.
I hear you're
Are you putting lunch
welcome.
tomorrow?
I mean, okay.
Oh
Oh my God, I have something at 1 o'clock tomorrow though. Do I have court tomorrow? What do I got tomorrow?
I might have court, I call for jury duty tonight.
Oh, what's the status? We're down a few people?
We're done. Oh,
We
I'm
are
sorry, we're
going
still in the
to-
middle of the meeting.
Yes, we are.
Director's report. Are we
That-
still on that?
that
That's
is
where we
it.
are?
That
Okay,
is it.
this is it. We're talking about it, okay. I think we're down a couple people. We're down to
Yeah.
7 because,
So one is being nominated at the next common council. ML Wilder is being nominated.
oh, I know Emma, okay.
I don't know her.
She lives on Oakland. Oh, you don't know her?
I don't know her.
Oh.
She's a planning.
Point of order.
Yes.
I wanted to test it out.
Probably what?
Yeah, right in my hand.
Oh, that's exciting.
She's got a planning background, so that's
No.
moving forward. And
So do
then-
I, know there's a meat credit for it. Oh. I graduated with Steph, go ask her.
I knew that.
All right, so Emma,
She actually
okay.
used the
Just a little comment. There's a conflict with a committee. And they want to meet at 4 o'clock on Mondays, and they would recommend we meet at 6:30 on Mondays. I don't know if that kills people, but I'm going to have to sit through both of them, so.
It'd be kind of nice if we could take a little straw poll, maybe, so we can actually vote.
You do a
If
doodle.
That's a.
Why don't we do that through email?
I can do that
you
through
can do it
email.
through
I'll do it
email.
through email.
Okay, thank you. No, it's anonymous.
Right.
Did you want to say something?
All right.
Double questions. Yeah, I guess I'll say the other thing is, Michael, this is, I believe, your last meeting
This is my last
of the
meeting.
plan commission.
You get adjourned now.
So,
Oh, he gets the motion? Okay,
Is it
so
done?
we're not there yet.
Not yet.
So it'll be 5?
We'll be
well,
done
we'll
with
do
5,
five,
and
and
then
then
Emma.
more appointments.
But somebody be nominated, they should get picked up on Tuesday, so that we'd have them for the next.
Tuesday.
We'll
We
have
would-
it for Thursday.
We wouldn't have
Not
them
for
for
this
Thursday, but we'd
I
have them for the
did
next.
check, we have a quorum for Thursday
Okay.
Okay.
with just the 5 members.
It'll just be the 5 of us.
No ties, that's perfect.
Oh, boy, okay, all right. All right, well, the date of the next meeting is Thursday, May 2nd, 2024.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to say thank you to all my colleagues on the commission. It's been a privilege to serve with all of you. We might not always have agreed on every motion, but I enjoyed the discussion and camaraderie of all of us. I'd like to thank the staff as well. And it's been a joy to work with you. It's been a joy especially to serve our city. So with that, I hope the next person coming in will continue to ask good questions, continue to serve well, and continue to move the city forward. So with that, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Well done, Michael.
We are adjourned.
Oh, we did.
Thank you, Michael. Oh, sorry, my bad.
Aye.
Jeez.